Right, well, good morning all and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Infrastructure for October 2022. Welcome to councillors, staff, those joining us in the gallery today and anyone viewing on live stream. It's good to have you with us. I'd like to now open the committee meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay, we have one leave of absence for Councillor Potter. He's away at an appointment today, so I'll move that be granted. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Duff, would you be so kind as to provide recognition of our traditional owners? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, item 4, declarations of conflict of interest in relation to today's agenda. Any from councillors? No? If you do throughout the course of the meeting, please don't hesitate to let us know. We'll move on to 5.1, minutes of the previous meeting. That's there at page 4. Recommendation is that the minutes of the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting held on the 7th of September 2022 be received. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, second to Councillor Erkins. Speakers to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.1, notice of motion. Transport Asset Management Plan at 15. And we'll go to you, Councillor Duff, in relation to your notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to amend my notice of motion, and I haven't sent that through. I haven't had time, sorry. That a report be brought back to the next Infrastructure Standing Committee with a review of the SBRC Transport Asset Maintenance Plan to closer align to the pothole repair intervention timeframes with the Department of Main Roads routine maintenance guidelines.
Right, so Councillor Duff, you'll move that motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Erkins, thank you. Speak to your motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've had a look at the guidelines for main roads as opposed to the guidelines for South Bennett Regional Council, and the bottom category E, roads, for example, Kilcoy, Mergen Road, Maidenwell, Bunya Mountain Road and Ogerton Road, which is the road out to Banduma Dam. We have roads that I believe are as highly trafficked as those roads, and yet our intervention levels are much longer timeframes for our speed zone greater than 60 kilometres per hour. The lower intervention level is 1.5 years and the upper intervention level is 3 months. Whereas in the category E, for the main roads, their lower intervention level, they don't have a timeline, and their upper intervention level is 4 weeks after the pothole is recorded. And then in the speed zone, 60 kilometres or less, our lower intervention level is 1.5 years and our upper intervention level is 6 months. So in the main roads, obviously they don't have the less than 60 kilometres because all their main roads are out on the higher speed zones. But I just think that there's a huge difference there, and obviously the main roads have got concerns about safety and when they believe a pothole has to be fixed. And yet on our roads, which I think in many cases, as I've said, are similar trafficked roads, the intervention levels are way longer. So I just think that we need to have a review of it. And this is what we talk about, service standards. And I'm just, yes, frustrated. And I think the community are frustrated. I know that we're in flood mode at the moment, and that changes how we respond. But I think generally speaking, that we need to have a look at our intervention levels with our potholes. So I commend this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. General Manager, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, if possible, is it able to, if the council was happy, we prefer December as opposed to November to make that time frame. For us to do a review, we've got to turn around the agenda item within 2 to 3 weeks. That's a fairly substantial turnaround, and the majority of us are away next week at CPD training. So we just prefer December if we, with the leave of the council, that just gives us more time to do it properly.
Thank you, General Manager.
Yeah,
Councillor.
absolutely. Happy to, just for December. No, that's no problem at all.
Good, thank you, councillor. Councillor Erkins, yep, okay, good. We've got that changed now. Okay, further speakers. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask Councillor Duff what she's hoping to get out of a report coming back, because, excuse me, we talk and compare our council with the main roads, which are two different beasts. I think the resources that the main roads have, the financial money that they have to spend, and what we're dealing with and all that sort of stuff. These are my opinions only, and the work that I've done with our staff and all that sort of stuff over a number of years. Unless we resource the people that we have on the ground with a flow-con truck or whatever we need to do, which is around about $750,000 plus these days, plus the staff, plus the running costs, you're looking at a minimum $2.5 to $3 million. So to make an impact on the response time for our roads, where our staff are struggling, doing their utmost best, and you mentioned that we're in flood mode at the moment. If we weren't in flood mode, would we be having the same issues to the extent that we are? And if in a perfect world, the rain coming periodically and all that sort of stuff, look, I think we're, by all means, have your report, but I honestly don't see any benefit. What I see coming back is the fact that we can make a faster response time to these potholes, but we're going to have to resource it. I'm happy for the mayor or yourself to tell me if you can see a fix other than resourcing and putting extra money into the problem and trying to address it that way. If there's another way that I'm missing, I'm more than happy to listen to it today. But I can't see us getting a faster response time to what we are. And some of these potholes, like the main roads, I believe, to a certain extent, the smaller potholes don't even get addressed. They just wait until they get to a bigger point. And I'm happy to be corrected on that. The staff, Aaron or someone, might be able to explain more. But seriously, if we want to respond quicker to the problem, I can't see any other way than resourcing it with a huge amount of money. If there's another option that I'm missing, I'm more than happy for you to tell me here today. But honestly, for our staff, the work they're doing and the response, and I talk to the neighbouring councils, I talk to the mayors, I talk to the roads portfolio people, and they're all having the same issue. It's not just South Burnett. It's all over southeast Queensland where the rain is coming and everyone's having the same issue. The mayor from Gympie was in town yesterday, met with the mayor, and I was lucky enough to have a quick conversation with him afterwards. Having the same issues. But seriously, the report I expect to come back is, yeah, we can respond, we can cut down, we can respond quicker to potholes, but it's going to cost you this, this and this, and I need this and I need that, and I need all the other extra stuff. So if there's other options that I'm missing that Councillor Duff would like to put forward, or anybody else in the chambers that I'm missing, I'm more than happy to take it on board. But that's what I think is the answer to your problem.
Councillor Hinchin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yeah, I can certainly agree with Councillor Duff's sentiments, and certainly, as Councillor Jones has articulated, it will boil down to money. But you know, previously I believe that the roads guys were slowly getting on top of things from improvements from years gone by, and now we've been smashed with 10 months of unprecedented weather events, and on the radio, as we stand here today, we're going to get smashed again this week with another weather event that's coming from today through until, I think, Sunday or Monday, 80% chance of rain again, and you just can't fix potholes when it's raining. So, yeah, as far as, financing it, resources, we've got to have the resources. And if that was to be implemented today or next week and it rains, have we solved anything apart from spend a lot of money? But the other thing I would question is our distance and length of roads in our shire compared to what the main roads is would be, correct me if I'm wrong, possibly 3 to 1 in distance, in kilometres. Like if we've got 3,000 odd kilometres of road network and the main roads, we're trying to compare with them, I would be led to believe that the distance would be quite different. So, yeah, of course we want all the roads and the potholes fixed. Have seen it, we've all seen it where we've gone out, our staff have gone out on the ground, tried to fix them, it's rained and the potholes have pulled back out again. So yeah, it's a bit of a thankless situation we're in, but we don't control that. And again, if we get smashed again this week with weather events, which we're going to reportedly for the next 3 or 4 months, we could have 4 Flowcon trucks and we're still not going to get the issues addressed. So yeah, just happy for a report, but that's my concern, that how do we fund it, and if we do and we get these weather events, we won't achieve anything. So thank you.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that just because something looks like it may be hard to do, it doesn't mean that we say it's like take the rubbish out for Wednesday's rubbish collection, or you've got a fortnight to get your rubbish out there. I don't think it hurts to have a target to be able to do things too. And I think this is just a matter of bringing back a report. Then we can look at the report. But I think that we should be setting, targets and hopefully try to meet them. I understand budgets and I understand the issues that we do have, but maybe if we look at the report, maybe we will see that some things are more a priority than other things, and we can set that. I'm not saying put more money into it. I understand that we are short on money, but maybe we can redirect money from one area that we think is not so important, and I think that is our role probably, to judge what is important and what isn't important. And when you're looking at roads with that higher speed limit, I know the number of people that ring, complain, and we all know that we have recently been on the news with and I know it's not the Nanango town, but the electorate of Nanango, with the amount of deaths on roads. So I do think for us to be setting a target and for it to be looking at this is definitely a worthwhile motion, and I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree. I think it's always healthy to look at our systems and better understand, why things are the reason why they are, and if there is an opportunity for improvement or to deliver better value, I think it's always good to do a self-assessment. So I'm very mindful at the moment. I just had a couple of questions through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of pothole repairs, it was my understanding we currently do them to ensure efficiency across the region. We currently do them in zones so that we're concentrating on a specific area and then we move on. Can I just confirm that, and how many zones we work across?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. So there's 14 maintenance zones at the moment. So just by way of comparison, our system is designed on a forward program base over 3 months. That's how it works out. We actually pick it up at a lower intervention level. It allows the team to program forward. Main roads is a more reactive system, so that's why they respond between 2 to 4 weeks. They chase high priority defects across the network. Any of those lower intervention ones actually sit in infancy, so they could sit there for 2 years, 5 years, 3 years, or they could get it done next week. It depends on what program and resourcing is available at that stage. But we can bring back a comparison as part of that to give an explanation. I think happy to show what you're buying, if that makes sense. But we do work on a maintenance program for the zones. But we will move to another zone if we need to, if there's high priority defects that if we have to deal with. One of the big changes that we met, and Council will recall late last year, we did introduce the the maintenance management plan as a trial to start bringing information in. Previously, prior to Kevin and I's arrival, there was no forward CapEx program for delivery, and there was no forward maintenance program for delivery other than I call it a ping pong approach, if that makes sense. So we have moved in the right direction. I think this will be a case of service level discussion around how much you want to resource and pay in infancy. So, sorry, Council, I hope that I probably jumped your question a little bit. That just is just how the zones
Yeah,
work.
no, it definitely helps. Because I think in setting the budget, we absolutely went through those maintenance options and the different costs and how we would spread our dollars across the network and try to achieve the many outcomes. I'm really curious about how we've actually set the intervention levels in the asset management plan, and I guess I would like to understand where we've actually exceeded our own expectations and delivered those defects sooner. So I know just in the roads that I regularly drive as part of my day-to-day life here in the South Burnett, I've noticed some potholes pop up overnight, and the crew, they do seem to, the response does seem to be timely, to the point where they're not getting much bigger over a period of time, and they're patched before we notice. I have noticed other areas, however, on the network where, a rural road where I've hit a pothole and it stayed much longer. And I understand that's around the classification of the roads, and making those decisions is not an easy when it comes to trying to find a balance. So I also note that we have been sweating our sealed network for a number of years. And so the rain has exacerbated. In many areas, we've seen pavement just peeling away, which has been quite fascinating. So I think, this is a different situation, I think, to where we were at last year. And I think a review of the systems and some information, certainly so that we're better informed and so that we can consider how we might be able to factor that into our processes or our budgeting into the future is good. So, no, I'm supportive of the motion.
Okay, Councillor Duff, right of reply before we go to the vote.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to, with regards to the budgets, so the RMPC, which is the road maintenance for the main roads, I believe that it hasn't been increased since amalgamation. So those service levels would be still, because we do those, I'm led to believe, or I thought we did the repairs on the main roads for them, so there's been no increase, but yet we've been throwing money, like every year we put more and more money towards the roads, and including a road levy. So I'm just, I know that we say about the budgets and things, but the main roads hasn't had an increase since amalgamation. So, but yet they're still able to have those those levels. So I do think it is timely to have a look at it and a review of our service levels. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillors Shoemaker, Erkins, Duff and Otto, and Jones and Henson. Carried unanimously. Thank you all.
Just a point of clarification, and it's not to debate. The RMPC, Councillor, you're exactly correct that the RMPC hasn't been raised since amalgamation. The reason that some of the problems that we have on the TMR network is because of the RMPC. So the transference of risk by main roads to local government, as far as the damage to that road network, because they transfer the risk. Happy, not to do with your report, but I don't think, Mayor, just as a point of clarification, it's a fair or equitable comparison with council's funding of its road network and TMR. The TMR roads that I know yourself have put and priority defects that have been lapsed because we can't get main roads to move. We've got to have permission. We may not have the funding on occasion, so that one, just in defence of council and over the period of time and the road levies and everything else that we've done, there's motions going up to LGAQ State Conference again this year to address that TMR funding because it has been deficient and it does cause us trouble. And council, as councillors would be aware, often gets blamed for the network damage to the TMR network, and we're as frustrated as everyone else because we don't have the resources to fix it.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mr CEO. Okay, item 6.2, notice of motion, Wandai and Mergen drainage at 19. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move my notice of motion, which is that council engage contractors to excavate the waterways of Dingo Creek, Wandai and in front of Mergen Dairy and Heritage Museum on the Mergen-Gayndah Road in order to mitigate flood damage, and that such works be completed by the 30th of November 2022.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Henson, thank you. Okay, speak to your motion. Thanks, Councillor Duff.
So a number of residents, Mr Mayor, in Mergen and Wandai have said that this is an issue. The silted up and blocked up drains like in that Dingo Creek. You drive over it, I only drove over it a couple of days ago, and there's all that debris and weeds and stuff in there. And then we've already had those areas cause major flooding around that the park there, and we've lost the bitumen there. And I just think that if we could clear those weeds and clear that waterway, that would, well, that's what the residents are saying. Why don't we clear that waterway to open it up so that the water flows away and stops that flooding around Dingo Creek? And again, the same in Mergen Creek, where the weeds are all banked up and causing the water not to be able to flow, is causing issues around flooding. So I just wanted to flag that and see if that could be done. I don't think it's a big job, it'd be a couple of hours maybe in Mergen and maybe half a day in Wandai just to fix that, and then the ratepayers would probably settle down, because they believe that half the reason why we're getting that flooding is because of those waterways not being cleared.
Thank you, Councillor. General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, we would just recommend to council maybe adding subject to environmental approvals. We would want to check that obviously with Pete and his group, and also obviously the weather, subject to accessibility with weather going forward.
Okay, so Kimberly, if we could just add subject to weather and environmental approvals. You comfortable with that, Councillor?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Henson? Yes, okay, good. We'll take that as the motion. Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Jones? Sorry, yes? Yep. Councillor Henson?
Just also there, I think Councillor Duff, and thanks, Manager Meehan, weather environmental, that factors, perhaps that also should include landowners there as well, because we're going to probably have to traverse on landowners' properties to carry out some of that work. And I know there's many been put in the system outside of this and drainage issues because of the weather events, but perhaps note in there as well, Mr Mayor, that take into consideration not just weather and environmental, but also the landowners that may be...
Certainly, thanks, Councillor. Certainly take advice. My understanding is there is no... I don't think there are any neighbouring private land holdings around the Mergen section. It is on a road reserve, and similarly, Dingo Creek at Wandai, I think we get access through the parklands on the back and front side. General Manager, would go to you on that though.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. To be honest, it probably wouldn't hurt for us to do consultation with the landowners who are adjacent to some of those streams, just out of courtesy, and just in case people can be a bit funny when you interfere with a waterway sometimes if they've got an opinion on what you should and shouldn't do. But we would be happy, for council's interest, we would be happy to consult with the landowners, and if there was a problem, we would bring that back, I think.
It's important to do. You're comfortable with that, Councillor Duff? Councillor Henson?
Yes, Mr
We've
Mayor.
inserted that now. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just in that Dingo Creek one in Wandai, Mr Mayor, I guess it'd be accessed down through Edward Street. There is a access down there halfway near the church, and I guess it depends as to how far that work needs to progress down that waterway. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Through you, just to Councillor Duff, the Mergen and Dairy Heritage Museum is the one that the table drain that runs down the side of the road, that when you go up towards the sale yards on your left and the Dairy Museum, turn off all that. You can dig that out, and unless the grass and everything else is mowed in there, the same issue is going to come back. You can dig it out every time you want, but I've spoken to Mr. Garrity up there. We went for a drive one day. He grabbed me and we went for a drive. I've spoken to the CEO about it, trying to get it onto the works register or works program for parks and gardens, and I think that would be a more beneficial solution if we were trying to get the grass kept to a lower level in that table drain, because you can go and dig it out and in 3 months' time the grass will be back there and the same problem will be created on that road. It needs to be maintained, and I think the grass needs to be kept to a lower level, because if you, like I said, you can go back there and you can constantly, you'll have to have a machine. If you want that left clear and all that without any weeds or whatever blocking up, you'll have to have a machine there all the time digging that out constantly, or we mow it and keep it down and all that sort of stuff. So that may be an option. I'm just putting that out there. And the other one, I just want to remind people in the chamber way back when we done some work in Sandy Creek, and that's why the importance of the environmental impact. When these guys went down and started digging and putting excavators into Sandy Creek, they nearly got hung. So it is very, very important that we do that environmental impact and just make sure that you get the approval and these guys are safe to go in and start ripping out weeds and digging bigger holes. So just some things to take into account.
Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. The first one is, how long since it's been, or have we ever done any work like this in those drainage areas? Is there any history to these issues?
Through Mr. Mayor, not that we're aware of, Councillor. I think it would all predate our time, unless Peter knew anything. I'm not sure.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in Bondi Shire Council days, we did do some clearing in Dingo Creek. We did have to go through, get environmental permits. So, yeah, it was just removal of silt more through that area. That would be, yeah, in the 2005 maybe, sort of around that time potentially. I'm aware of that, but not since then. So, yeah, sometime in the 2000s.
And would we have an idea of how much an activity like this would cost and how we would pay for it?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, it would come from council's maintenance budget. It would come out of our drainage budget or somewhere in that container. Cost wise, we wouldn't know until we walk in and probably cost it. The big one for us will be is how much material we take out and how wet it is. That'll be a and how far we go with that length as well. So yeah. So to be honest, I wouldn't know at this point.
And my third question is just, has there been actually any reported inundation at the Mergen Dairy and Heritage Museum or along the Dingo Creek area of Wondai? Have there been any households or areas that have actually been flooded? You know, I'm mindful we've had 5 events, so I'm just trying to understand the purpose of these works.
Through Mr. Mayor, we'd have to take that one on notice, but my only understanding of inundation was in the Silverleaf area, I think, in the last one. I'm not aware of any inundation on Dingo Creek or at the Dairy Museum into households, that is.
Yeah, thank you for the further information. There wasn't a lot included in the rationale. I'm very supportive of doing the investigation. I have some concerns around the environmental, and in my experience, you know, with creeks and waterways, those environmental measures are not to be taken for granted, and we're not to do activities unless we have actually done the proper investigation. So I'd actually like to propose an amendment to the motion. Got a funny mouth. Sorry, Kimberly, you're good. So that the committee recommends to council that council investigate appropriate measures to treat, can I say that? To treat the waterways up Dingo Creek, Wondai, and in front of the Mergen Dairy and Heritage Museum on the Mergen-Gander Road, with the intent of mitigating any potential flood damage due to predicted weather patterns, and that a report detailing the environmental considerations and funding mechanisms be brought back to the December Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. And can I just change so that council investigate and consult with the adjacent landholders with regards to the appropriate measures to treat the waterways at Dingo Creek, Wondai, and in front of Mergen Dairy Heritage Museum at the Mergen-Gander Road with the intent of mitigating any potential flood damage due to the predicted weather patterns in the report, and that the report detailing the environmental considerations and funding mechanisms be brought back to the December Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Jones, thank you. Councillor, you can speak to your amendment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've certainly heard the feedback and the information given here today. I would like some more information about how we best manage these waterways, and, you know, if it is something that we have left go untreated or has resulted in significant flooding or inundation in specific areas, you know, I think there's always an opportunity for our council to learn. I'm also very mindful of how finite our budget is. Certainly want to mitigate any potential flood damage or impacts to adjacent landholders if we can, but also very mindful that there is no fat in that budget, and if we do take funds from one area to fund another area of our budget, we are risking potentially another priority being missed. So I just want to be fully informed before I make this decision, and I'm very mindful of the environmental factors that I think our council also needs to respect and be mindful of as well when it comes to sediment and erosion control, because as soon as you excavate those areas, it's very likely, in my experience on my farming properties, that once you move dirt, it is so much easier for more to wash away. So, you know, just excavating an area may actually require further rock fill or something like that. And I do like the idea of investigating whether simply mowing it or whippersnipping it may help mitigate the issues. So I'd like to commend the amendment to the chamber.
Okay, further speakers? Anybody? Councillor Reckons.
I think that's a very good idea, but I also think there are other issues. There are other areas who also have similar problems as this, so it might be an opportunity to investigate some other areas across the region as well. Thank you. Yep.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support the amendment, but I just think that the timelines, and what I was talking about with Dingo Creek was we lost the park there, and also the damage that was done to the footy fields was all because of that big flooding area around Dingo Creek. So if we're happy to just let that they're talking about more rain, so this is just going to take longer, but I do agree that we need to make sure we don't do anything wrong with regards to the environment and all of those things. So happy to support the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, further speakers? Look, I'm concerned about this amendment. I'm not going to support it. A couple of reasons. Number one is that staff will go on leave late December, early January. They've got to get back in. They've got a lot of work to do with the roads and other programming matters. I'm concerned that the predictions are that we're going to see significant summer rain. Let's hope it doesn't result in flooding. I don't think we've got time to certainly delay this. If it comes back to December, it then goes to December ordinary. Staff will be away. The work's not likely to happen to February. I'm expecting, please stand corrected, happy to stand corrected, that we are being told we could get heavy summer rain in perhaps, I don't know, November, December, January. Are we better off to get in and get this done before that rain hits? That's my worry. I'm also worried it's a bit of a false economy to say that the cost of doing this. I'm worried that if we don't do it, that the damage to Dingo Creek parklands, and also I do know that the water that flows down behind Brian Zed's engineering and that inundates the back end of the cemetery comes from this particular drain. I've been there with the fellows from the meatworks, from Livestock Exchange, and you can clearly see it's heavily silted. And it's not just a matter of mowing it. The weeds there are probably, well, they're taller than me. You know, they're big, high weeds, probably 5 to 6 foot high. Probably does need ongoing maintenance around mowing and into the future. But I don't think there's any point. You couldn't get in there with a mower at the moment. No, absolutely no way. It's too silted. It's too dense and thick. It really does need an excavator. Both locations. I've had a number of people in Wandai raise this Dingo Creek excavation of the creek with me over the last 2 years, and certainly people in Mergen have raised the issue that there is water that's backing up around the back of where that water flows down behind the engineering firm there. So, look, I think this is probably one where we have to be a bit pragmatic and get in and do it, knowing that there's flooding coming. Otherwise, we may miss the opportunity and could then see us having to incur costs. So, on that basis, I tend to support the original motion. Okay, go to Councillor Shoemaker for right of reply.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I was just thinking it's almost been a year since our first flood activation, which was November last year. I'm probably more concerned, respectfully, if residents have been raising this with you for the last 2 years, why we haven't heard about it sooner.
Well, if I could interject, Councillor, I've submitted a number of customer requests on Dingo Creek previously, and that was the process that I followed in accordance with policy. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is the first it's been brought back to council for consideration, and it didn't come up in the budget discussions that we had. I just personally don't feel it's responsible to make decisions like this on the fly. There's very limited information here. I know there's other areas with very similar situations, and I do think sediment and drainage and management of those is very important, and I know that's an area where we can certainly improve. I just feel that if the staff do go out and do an investigation and notice that there is an immediate impact, I trust that they'll actually respond to that effectively in some way or form and bring more information back around what those long-term measures may be. I think certainly it's way out of my expertise, but I just would rather have all of the information, make responsible decisions when it comes to spending the money our ratepayers invest in our region, and ensure that we are actually taking the best approach to fixing this problem and not creating another problem by simply going in there in a hurry with an excavator and digging it out. So I understand your sentiment, Mr. Mayor, certainly understand your frustration. However, I do think it's more responsible of us in terms of fiscal financial management, to make decisions with the most information available, and there really isn't a lot of information here.
That concludes the debate. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Erkins, Councillor Jones and Henson. Those against? Councillors Duff and Otto. So that motion's been carried. The amendment now becomes a substantive motion, as moved by Councillor Shoemaker and seconded by Councillor Jones. Further opportunities to speak? Councillor Shoemaker.
Just one question for our staff, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm. So if we did go out there and we did notice that there was extreme amounts of sediment in the area, that there was an immediate flooding risk with the upcoming rain, would your team be prepared to do some interim works to fix that? Or does that actually have to come back to council for, is that simply operational, or does that have to come back to council for endorsement?
Through Ms. Mayor, tricky question, without getting shot. We would, I think if there was an issue, I'd be quite happy to email all councillors and say if I've made an operational decision on behalf of council, which we can. The biggest one, the Dairy Museum doesn't concern me as much as the creek does, and it's something we would talk to Peter about. I think the environmental approval's there. For us, like, we would be quite happy to get that in motion. The other thing is to be honest, given the current state of that, we would probably recommend an on-site meeting, particularly in relation to both those drains. So we would be quite happy to arrange that through and invite the council, because how far do we go, if that makes sense as well? So we don't want to do anything to upset a landowner, but if there was an immediate issue with any infrastructure, we would always intervene. So, and to be honest, I'm quite happy to talk council through that if we say that we're going to take the silt out of that because it's going to flood someone's property. If that does that make sense, Mr. Mayor? Through you.
Yeah, look, it does, General Manager, and certainly, as I said, I've had a number of inquiries around these two issues for the last 2 years, and I've certainly strongly encouraged people to put customer requests in, and from that database, we might have a knowledge of people who have been raising the issues. Maybe if we're going to have an on-site meeting, we can go back through those customer requests and identify the names of the people who have been raising the issues there, and perhaps we can get them along to have a conversation around what's involved and the impacts. But yeah, look, that makes absolute sense. Yeah, sure.
Just my second question in terms of the time frame. I'm very mindful of the rain events and how difficult it is to deploy crews at the moment between these sort of showers. The December Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting, do you think that is, soon enough? Do you think, I was thinking based on your previous discussion that November was off the table due to current workload, but yeah, just keen to hear whether we are potentially risking if we do carry it out until December.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I think the big thing will be depending on the scope of the works and how much we do in sourcing a contractor. That being said, I'd like to see we'll make every effort to get a site meeting up this month if we can, and go through that. And there's always an opportunity for us to make November general if we wanted to pull the trigger on something a bit earlier. And I think too, once we've, if we have a bit of consensus from that site meeting that we have a problem or what the path is for each of those two different drains, there's nothing to stop us from getting some preliminary stuff in motion, if that makes sense. So sourcing a contractor will be a little bit difficult. I actually think with the weather, to be honest, I think we're going to have trouble excavating. Not saying that we can't, but you cop 40 mil, like there's projects we have at the moment, they're just saturated when we get into stuff. So trying to get out without making a mess. The other thing is too, you will get lit up by the landowners if you go through and you track through, say, Dingo Park, or you track through those areas. So I think we need to have a plan to how we manage that on site as well, particularly if we've got ongoing rain. So, but I think we'll make best efforts from our point of view, and we'll go from there if that's okay.
For the further information, no further questions.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I just been sitting here thinking and understanding the lay of the land down there in Dingo Creek. If we have a significant downpour, 40 mil, it'll come through and do what it does and all the rest of it. If we clean the creeks out, it enables the water to run faster, and therefore the Bondi Sports Club and all the rest of it could be in a little bit more serious damage, or for more serious damage. If we dig the creeks out and we have significant rainfall, I'm talking 2 and 3 inches like we've had in the past with significant, digging the creeks out is not going to stop the damage of the water that created the damage to our car parks and all that. We've got to understand that. Yes, we can go and dig it and we can do all that sort of stuff. The environmental impact study is going to be the hold up in that process there. It's not a matter of just being able to jump in, and they won't give you an okay, I wouldn't think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but in dealing with them in the past, and you go to the environmental impacts, they don't give you an answer in a week or two. It takes a little bit of time to get that through for a start. So there's a month I would suggest, but if we clean the creeks out, yeah, it's going to let the water run faster and all that. But if we have significant rainfall like we've had in the past in the last 4 or 5 events where we get 5 and 6 inches and there's water coming through there at 7 and 8 foot, digging the weeds out and clearing the waterways is not going to stop the damage around that park area and all that sort of stuff. It's going to continue. So, yeah, I support it and go and look at it. But just my personal view, it's when we have significant, there's a lot of water comes down through that Dingo Creek gully, and you can clean that out. It's not going to eliminate the possibility of severe damage to that park there on the flat.
Okay, further speakers? No? Councillor Shoemaker, right of reply? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Jones, Councillor Henson and Councillor Erkins. Those against? Councillor Duff and Otto. Okay, that motion has been carried, 4 votes to 2. So item 6.3 is a notice of motion from Councillor Shoemaker. Committee, I'm going to rule this out of order in accordance with item 3.14.1 and 3.14.2. 3.14.2 in our committee policy says that the chairperson shall rule out of order a motion which does not comply with section 3.14.1 of this policy. This was received less than 7 days prior to today's meeting, and as such is in contravention of council's policy. That being the case, we'll now set that aside and move on to item 7.1. Okay, so 7.1, infrastructure planning works, construction and maintenance portfolio report at 29. Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, it gives me great pleasure to be back in the chamber to deliver a infrastructure, roads and drainage report for the month of October, and I'll present it as read. You can see there's a few highlights through there. We continue to, with our capital works program, the Blackbutt CBD is getting near completion, and I'm sure most of you people, the councillors, have been down there. It's an absolute credit to the staff and the contractors and everybody else that's been involved in that. The people of Blackbutt have certainly taken to it, and I haven't finished down there yet. We're in process. I'm hoping to get a community group, make an application for funding to put murals along the wall that goes along the edge of the Les Muller Park to really encapsulate the whole process of the works that have been down there, and see what we can finish there. The Elbow Road at Merlewood, the pavement rehabilitation works there. We're getting close to completion. Kingaroy Transformation Project, George Street Car Park has got underway in the last few days. That's going to be an added bonus to the completion of the KTP, Glendon Street, Marple Street intersection. John Street, Kingaroy, our gravel and shoulder resheeting, bitumen resealing and patrol grading there. We haven't got lists, but there's a few words there if anyone wants to have a look at that. Our key projects coming, current design and planning projects, Maidenwell, Bunyan Mountain Road, Wengenville, Cumbia, Streetscape, Cumbia. That's very close to being getting underway. That'll be a great improvement to Cumbia. Wandai Industrial Estate, Stage 2, the road and intersection widening. His design has been 30% completed. Alfred Street, Nanango, Moffatdale State School. And you go over the slashing and all that sort of stuff continues. The infrastructure works for the year-to-date customer requests. You can see a couple of graphs there, just giving you a comparison of where we're sitting, and things are looking pretty good there. You can see that for your own personal view. And then there's some photos of works throughout the presentation. So, Mr Mayor, I'd like to present my roads and drainage portfolio to the chamber to be endorsed. I move that it be accepted. And before I sit down again, I would just like to pass on a massive thank you and congratulations to the men and women that are out there on the road doing the jobs that they do, trying to make it a better community and a better, safer travel for our residents across our region. We discussed it earlier in this morning. They are chasing their tails with these weather events. We just get to the completion of one significant event and then another one seems to pop up and we go back and the poor people are just out there doing their very best. And we need to continue to tell the story about the way the funding works so that people understand. And I find that once people are very frustrated when they come to you saying, oh, you're sending machinery out there, you know, you're doing half a job, that's bloody rubbish and all that sort of stuff. But when you explain to them that's as much as we can do and we're waiting for the funding, they're very acceptable of that, knowing that we're going to come back and do the job properly. So I just hope that our media continue to do that and we continue to send that message. I think it's very important that the people understand the process. So with that, I'd like to move that my report be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson, speakers? No? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2, which is the Kingaroy Transformation Project update. That is at 44, and we'll go to you. Thank you, Project Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick update on the KTP. Obviously, since I was here last, we've completed largely the works in Glennon Street. We did have some impacts in late July from the wet weather. We had what was our 5th event through the project, which was unfortunate. But obviously that causes some minor delays and also some rework and some saturation through that area. The area was well utilised during Baconfest. I think the design with the no gutter through there, I think, was very largely popular, particularly with inclusive, with people with wheelchairs, being able to get through the site to the forecourt. So that was well received. It's just a photo there of our team from Fulton Hogan. The guys had their last day with us in early mid-August, coming up with their team. Just probably just acknowledge them also. They did, through negotiation, manage to hang in for a couple of additional days and do some maintenance for us while they were here. So recall the work, there was some temporary works done on Alfred Street East, and also the works on the on King Barker's through there on Haley Street. You probably note too, Mr. Mayor, those infills near the Vic were also done, taking away those potholes. So they've got EME asphalt through them now as well. But obviously we did some larger sections, also down near Swickers, a few problem areas. So it was really good that they did hang in for us to come up a couple of days beforehand and also hang in for a couple of days after to just take away some of the painful potholes given the forecast coming through. Our structures are due to arrive next week at this stage. They're being made by BZE in Mergen. We've been told that they will arrive next week, so we're highly anticipating that will start bringing that area to a close. Obviously, weather permitting. Just one there. There's a picture there of the structures going in. Obviously, our footpath is going through as well. Our feedback on the footpath has been excellent so far. As we move through the streets, the surfacing. It's interesting. I was looking at some old photos yesterday. You do forget what the street looked like and how bad it was in some sections, particularly with bitumen and emulsions and I call them dirty pavers. But to actually see that comparison between what was there and what is there now is tremendous. And the feedback from the businesses has been very, very good as well. Also, what you'll see there is the structures going in, and with the addition to, there's a number of businesses who are now doing up their frontage. So I think my understanding is Coppards are going to begin next week or the week after, and we've just about finished the surfacing in front of them. I would also recommend, if you haven't been for a walk through the CBD, probably go and have a walk past the Club Hotel and just have a look at the works that's going on there. They painted the outside yesterday and they're resheeting the underside of the roof in the last 2 days, and they're working at nights. And there's new doors and stuff. So to me, that's a really positive sign that we're going to see some, improvements to how the CBD operates. So that's pretty exciting. Just with our program at this stage, I expect that we will go over time frame with the wet weather. We have spoken to the department. They will grant us an extension as long as we need to complete the project properly. I expect that we will be surfacing still probably in January and February. So what happens with that is every week that it rains, depending on what day it is, we can lose up to 7 days, depending on when the product is sprayed and when it goes down. So in one case, Mark was due to start on the Monday. There was rain forecast for the Wednesday, so he cannot spray at all that week because his product gets wet. And then that means he can't actually get his product off before the end of the week. So, and one thing we're adamant about is obviously we want to finish the project properly. It's been a large project. This is your real finishing. So, and the department have been very, very good. We've obviously had a few supply chain issues as well, and they've been very understanding that they will extend that on month by month if we need to until we complete the project. Just some progress charts there that council's obviously seen before. Just with costs there on page, it says 6 or 7 on mine, but it's actually page 50 on the agenda. That's our previous forecast there. So obviously we had an impact. We were looking at around 50 grand. We do expect that we will see some slight increases, or depending on what nature that they are. We're currently reviewing costs at the moment to see where the project will actually finish, and we're hopeful that we'll have that information up to council as soon as possible. Obviously with our wet weather impact that we've had through there as well. And we'll bring that up as soon as we finalise those. There's just a picture of the Glendon Street Cafe being occupied. And also the just with our forward forecast. So currently we expect that we will have structures in the next probably 4 to 5 weeks, hoping to aim for completion for those. There is a second report coming up in a minute for about the occupation of those structures, and obviously we have a footpath surfacing program. We expect at this stage that we'll move into the final electrical now, and we will have power, aiming to have power operational by December. And obviously we are a little bit concerned that the weather may impact on the installation of some of that electrical equipment. But at this stage, we expect that we'll start pulling lights and that sort of stuff through in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see a fair bit of activity. Just with the installation of the electrical too, that will be minimal impact on businesses in the CBD. The main one that's an effect for them at the moment is obviously the surfacing, but that seems to be going well at the moment as we do one half of the footpath and then swap over to the other. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's the report.
Thank you very much, Project Manager. Okay, so the recommendation is that Council note the attached Kingaroy Transformation Project Update Report for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, a seconder. Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Jones? No? Yes?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just want to, I've shown my support all the way through for this project, and to see it getting near completion, I'm so happy, and to see the results and the difference it's making to our community. And with that shared zone, the conversations we had around all that, now to see the Kingaroy Christmas Carnival, people wanting to come in there and utilise that as well, it's really good to see that space will be used for exactly what the purpose was when we created it. So yeah, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, fully supportive. So happy to see it getting close to the end, and a little bit disappointed that it will go over time. I did say it would come in on time and on budget, but anyway, we've had some nasty weather events all the way through, and I think the men and women, again, that have been involved in this project deserve to be really sincerely thanked for their efforts and the work that they put through. So please, Mr. GM, take that back to the staff. They've done a wonderful job, and the community is starting to see the real benefits. Initially, no one wants to see change. They don't want to see anything that they've grown up with for 40 years, but when they see it all happen and unfold, they seem to change their mind. Yes, there is still some negativity out there, but it's far outweighed by positivity. So, yeah, very good.
Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree. The street is looking great, and it's so nice after one benefit of the rainfall is that the gardens and all of the flowers have come out. It's looking really, really pretty around town, which is a nice change for Kingaroy certainly after a long period of construction fences and things about town. To see sort of the finished vision coming to life has really been quite spectacular. I just had a couple of questions. In terms of overtime, do you have an anticipation of what that might look like? Just to confirm, I couldn't quite understand from the report you'd given. And in terms of wet weather days, I just wanted to know, for the community's sake, exactly how many wet weather days have we had on the program? Because I know firsthand I've seen guys laying concrete in the rain. I know the Fulton and Hogan crew have done roadworks in the rain. I know it has been an enormous challenge for the team, and I just am very curious about exactly, out of the period of the project, how many days have actually been wet.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. For the first one, I think we'll be finished around February is my feel with the current weather situation. That may come ahead. It depends on what day it falls, in all honesty. Talking with Mark, he's obviously got additional staff on the moment. If we had no wet weather, we would be finished before Christmas. We would be straight through. But I'm a realist too. And I think the other thing is we want to get expectations right with businesses. We will not be surfacing in front of businesses in December. That's just, if we're looking to do anything, we'll be looking at probably Glennon Street out here, and to some of the vacant stuff out in Haley Street as well, where we're not annoying people, but we have no expectation to disrupt in the CBD in that period of time unless someone critically wants something done. We are pushing ahead to where the sunlight is. So King Roy Street, that street's probably 80% finished now, which is good. So obviously we want to get through the retail elements as quickly as we can. We do have a number of vacant shops, particularly down in some areas. And we've got some open space as well. So we are leaving those till last. That's why we are jumping a little bit. And obviously, it's a lot easier for us to manage Glennon Street out here if we get caught later on with a bit of open space. So, your second question was about the wet weather. Number of days, I'm not sure. We don't track every day of wet weather on the project. To be honest, it's been ongoing since October last year. So when you look at the charts, that's 5 events that we've had through there, which is just, that's a crazy amount of rainfall. And that's the reason why the road network's playing up like it is. I don't think anyone can remember having 5 rain events and ongoing rain, particularly through winter as well. I think I heard the discussion the other day about, when we do works and that sort of, there is so much moisture around, it's not funny, in the drains and in table drains and, in the bottom of subgrades and stuff. So it's been a very big challenge. But to answer your question, Council, we don't track that at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Certainly I agree. I think limiting the impact on trade during Christmas and period is just so critical. So I would rather see us not actually try to get those works done and allow people to be around enjoying the CBD, hopefully doing their shopping locally by local people. There are some amazing stores in our CBD. My last question was just in relation to the line marking for Glendon Street. I know I've had some feedback, just it's quite tricky to line your vehicle up, and I know I drive a big vehicle, but do we have an indication of when that will be actually done?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, that has been organised, so they should be here in the next couple of weeks. So I can send you through a date, happy to supply that. So there is a crew booked in to complete that. And just so also people are aware, there are 2 disabled zones in the Glennon Street. There's been some feedback that we haven't put disabled bays in there. They will be installed when that line marking comes through. So I think there's some temporary signage there as well. So, but I'm happy to send through a date. But it should be imminent, is my understanding.
Thank you, Project Manager. Further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to, as Councillor Jones said, there's still some negativity. Are we still going and talking to those shop owners that have had real issues? Like there's posts up on Facebook, and there's been a lot of negativity on the feeds about shop owners going broke and all that kind of thing. Are we still trying to work with those shop owners, or are we just going to walk away and just say that's okay, or what are we doing to address that negativity around what's happened, and concerns about parking and all of that kind of thing? Are we still working with those shop owners is my question.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So as far as the effect on businesses, there's not a lot that we can do to combat that, I suppose. We have been pushing some social media around some of the outcomes of the project. I think you would have seen those recently on Facebook around some of those outcomes that the project's achieved. There are probably the biggest one for us, I believe, is as the project nears completion, is to probably highlight some of the achievements of the project would be the best bit. Also, depending on what council does with the parking in the next couple of weeks, obviously there's a report due back probably at the next standing committee around the parking consultation. It's probably an opportunity for council to look at its messaging that it wants to put out, depending on what council decides to do. We are still doing business consultation with construction program, but that's about the end of it at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, further speakers? No. Councillor Jones, anything to close the debate? No. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 7.3, Kingaroy Alfresco Dining at 52, and we'll stay with you. Thank you, Project Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a report in relation to the new alfresco zones that we have constructed in the KTP precinct. So we've got the 2. There's one at the commercial hotel, and there's also one at the club hotel, which are adjacent to those licensed premises. The other 4 are actually around at the in Kingaroy Street near opposite the laneway. I think everyone knows where that is, near the zebra crossing there, near Crisscross. There's 4 there at the moment. With those structures nearing completion, we're pretty keen to see those get occupied, particularly prior to Christmas if possible. We figured that it would be prudent now at this point to begin negotiations about the occupancy of those areas. What we're suggesting is that obviously the 2 ones adjacent to the pub are to be occupied by those licensed premises. They're the nearest business. They're also that was the purpose of having those through there. What we're suggesting is that council delegate to the CEO to negotiate those agreements for up to 2 years with a fee of about $500 per annum in relation to the mains. And I'll just talk about those conditions in a second. Also in the report, what we would recommend is that on the 4 ones in Kingaroy Street, that council call for expressions of interest from adjacent owners of those areas. And then that way people can put a submission to council for their consideration. And the main one we'll be looking for there is how they plan to use the space. And how they plan to promote activation of the street. So are they going to use it for breakfast, lunch, dinner? How many nights a week? What are their expectations to operate that? That way, council can make a decision on who they allocate those spaces to in the first round of that area. What I'm suggesting with those 4 is that council would look to enter into a 2-year agreement with the second year optional, but the fee would be waived in the first year. Now, what that does, it allows those areas to be occupied and allow those businesses to have a go to see if it's going to work for them, and also allow them to probably invest in some of the furniture and those sort of things. So what happens then? They would pay a $500 fee on uptake of the second year. So for an example, a business might and and say, well, I don't know if I want to pay that. Am I going to, what will a business be like? Basically, you're encouraging them to have a free year, essentially, before we would begin maintenance on the fence, to encourage people to make those uses. And the big thing we're looking for those al frescoes, obviously, is we want them to activate the street. We want them to be used. And we also want them to be used in a variety of ways, so that it's not a one-trick pony. There might be some people that you want to go out there and have dinner, and other ones that you might want to go and have breakfast or coffee and that. So it might suit a variety of people for different reasons. So we'd be very keen to hear from businesses what their ideas are and what they want to use them for, but also gives them an opportunity to. I know money's a bit tight at the moment with some of them, so it's an opportunity for them to put their best foot forward. Obviously, what we would do is we'd have an agreement drawn up, which would be executed by Mark in his role as the Chief Executive Officer. Those areas would be occupied by the licensee. They must maintain their inclusive access through there, so that means that they can't do anything there that would discourage the use by all people within our community. And they would need to be used in a manner that increases activation and patronage of the CBD, which is what the project was meant to be. They cannot be used as a designated smoking outdoor area. They'd not be able to use as a doser. They would be used for occupancy without that. Obviously, we don't want them turning into smoking areas. That's not what they're designed for. Plus, that would restrict other amenities within that region. One of the main ones we'd be looking for that they must maintain it, they must clean it. And that includes the gardens around there. So that's a discussion we've had with our park staff in recent times. If they're being occupied, effectively they would be an extension of their area. And they would be expected to keep it maintained and clean like they would their own premises. That's why, that they've been giving a large area to be picked up. So it's a fair bit of floor space they pick up. Expectations would be that they would maintain and clean it to our satisfaction. If they did not do that, then there would be penalties applied for that. So if we had to come and clean it because it was unable to be maintained, we'd obviously put some financial penalty clauses in there to recover those costs as part of that agreement. Any damages to the area that's from the operations of that area would be borne by that applicant as well. So if one of the pub areas, someone does a bit of damage, we would be obviously hold the proprietor responsible for that, just as they would if someone kicked a hole in the wall in their own premises. That's the intent of that. And we'd be looking at an agreement for 2 years with a $500 fee, or as otherwise agreed. By that I mean is if someone turns around and says, oh, look, I really want 3 years because of A, B and C, and I'm going to go and spend $15,000 in furniture, we'd have the capacity to work with that person to do that. The $500 fee for us is mainly around the maintenance and the upkeep of that area, particularly in relation to the fencing. Obviously, it'll need work each year. We want to make sure that it's maintained in good order, so we would put that money towards doing that additional maintenance through there to keep the area looking good. And then council can review it in 12 months or 2 years' time to see how you want to take them forward. So with that would be the in-principle conditions that we would apply. Obviously, we would just get that subject drawn up. The expressions of interest for the 4 areas, we would bring that back to council as soon as possible and let council make some decisions about who occupies that based on what you want to do with those areas. So if that summarises, Mr Mayor, I think it's a great opportunity. We would go door to door with the businesses on Kingaroy Street and give them some thing and invite them to make a submission to council around what they would use the area.
Thanks very much. That's a comprehensive report. Thank you, Project Manager. Councillor Erkins, we're probably just keen to get the motion up. If we can, they'll come to you, unless you wanted to propose an alternative motion.
No, I just had a couple of questions on the structures mainly.
Okay,
and the
yep.
occupancy.
All right, sure. We can do that part of the debate. So the recommendation from the officers is that the committee recommend to council that council delegate to the chief executive officer to negotiate arrangements with the proponents of the Club Hotel Kingaroy and the Commercial Hotel Kingaroy for the occupancy of the adjacent alfresco structures with a fee of $500 per annum, and council call for expressions of interest from adjacent hospitality businesses for the occupancy of the 4 alfresco structures in Kingaroy Street for a period of 2 years or otherwise nominated, with an annual fee of $500 per annum to be implemented upon uptake of the second year option. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, a seconder, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers, Councillor Jones. First opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, General Manager Meehan has just given a good outline there. Now that we put the structures in, I think it's imperative that we have them occupied to get full value and utilise the money that's being spent in the main street. So I think that's a very good motion. The issue around the price being the same for the hotels and maybe some of the cafes up the main street, maybe that can be discussed about. I think the potential for the hotels to make significant income because of their extended trading hours. Obviously the cafes have the ability to do the same hours, but whether or not they'll extend, I don't know. But I'm happy to commend this to the chamber and fully support it.
Further speakers? Councillor Erkins.
I have a few questions. One is definitely on the cost to the hotels compared to the cafes. Another, so does that mean that the hotels will need to extend their liquor licence to cover them onto the areas?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So the first one was just with the pricing. That was just a normal that we put through. So if council wanted to reduce the one for the 4 in Kingaroy, we wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that the big thing is it might be something that you negotiate through that process as well, and get some feedback from the businesses through that expression of interest. So we can happily have that chat through that. Just with the liquor licence, yes, you're 100% correct. So we have had inquiries from those premises to apply for their liquor licence. So they're pretty keen to occupy, as you would expect. So that would be an extension of their liquor licence, which would form part of theirs. So hence why we think those conditions are appropriate that they maintain, and they're also responsible for anything that happens on those areas.
Okay. I was thinking more of raising the hotels rather than dropping the other ones. It works out about $10 a week, which is really, I mean, as any business person knows, you're really you're giving that away. And also insurances, making sure who's covered for insurance, whether council are covered or, I would just hope that would be covered in their lease, as in one of the things that I'm also concerned of with licensed premises is making sure that they are definitely controlled that, you know, if they don't control their patrons there, that council has some right in their lease or their agreement with them to take action on that, because the you know, one of the things that can really knock a great project is if they don't control you know, patrons. And when you've got patrons and liquor, sometimes that's not the easiest thing. If it's in your pub, it's not so noticeable to people, but if it's out on the street, it could definitely be an issue. So long as that was controlled, and in the lease that was controlled. But definitely, probably for me, I would prefer, I don't know, an amendment, but if you take the price out of that with a figure to be determined, you know, I would rather see that, a figure to be determined for the costs, rather than put in there the $500. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. CEO, would we be able to change that without doing an amendment?
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you. With the agreement of the movement, so we just insert to be negotiated and remove the 500. Is that where? Yep. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go to General Manager first.
Yeah,
Your
just-
thoughts around that?
Yeah, just on that, Mr. Mayor, through you, the number one query we do have from the community is how much is it going to cost. They want to know how much their fee will be before they put their occupancy in. So that's why we did put a nominal in there. So that's why we went with that one. I think if council wanted to, if the nature of the council is they want to increase the hotel one, it's not an issue for us. I think the big one with the ones in Kingaroy Street is people will be, there's a lot of inquiries about how much is it going to cost, what can I do with it, and that sort of stuff. For them to put that forward, I think the number one inquiry we have is, well, how much do I have to pay if I go out there with my stuff? So that's why we thought that option there for number two would allow them to have a go, and then if they, you know, obviously if they're making money, I do agree with you. I think it is quite good value, but I think the main one is if we can encourage them out there, then council can review that in 2 years' time. That was just my only thoughts on that, Mr. Mayor. They do want to know how much they're going to pay.
Look, while I agree that it's definitely critical that you have those structures occupied, you know, I understand that completely. But, you know, for a business, we're saying that they're going to get the first 12 months for nothing, and the second 12 months are going to be paying $10 a week. That you know, around about $10 a week. You know, if a business, you know, sometimes you can have things too cheap, so you need the business to go in there with the capabilities of being able to be successful. So sometimes if it is too cheap, you know, they go in not fully prepared, and they don't understand, because besides the $10 a week, they're also going to have, as you said, cleaning costs and other, it'll be extra staff and that type of thing. So I think that is a more than generous offer for those businesses. One of the other things that I thought of, we do have sometimes community groups that want to put things out. You know, maybe if we couldn't take up the 4 with businesses, maybe there is an option for council to have one for community groups, or even for council who at times want to get information out, so that, you know, rather than sort of think that we've got to give them all away to people at a very low fee. I know that in the mall, you know, people hire a section in the mall to get messages out. You know, maybe that is something, you know, if the Christmas carnival's coming up, that committee could have one of those structures to get that out, especially with the other towns. You know, maybe some of the other towns have things that they're putting up. I know Blackbutt recently had their great things. You know, maybe their committee could come in. So I believe that with those 4 structures, besides, you know, basically thinking that we have to give it to adjacent businesses, there are also other options for maybe one of those structures. But you know, I understand what you're saying about the fee, but I think the hotels, I think $500 a year is definitely too cheap for those. I'm okay with the businesses at 500, but I do think you need to keep in mind, as I said, sometimes you can make it too cheap and then they don't understand the cost. Because it's cheap, they grab it, but there are more costs to be considered.
Okay, councillor, you're proposing then perhaps that we have to be negotiated in item 1 for the hotels and leave the $500 in item 2 for the other 4 structures?
Mr. Mayor, I would be happy for the CEO to, you know, work with a fee, bearing in mind that for all of those things, rather than just put that $500. You may find that one business, I mean, just because there are 4, you may find that one is more valuable and a business is prepared to pay more than what another business is too. I don't know whether the CEO is happy to.
Yeah, I think I'll go to Councillor Jones on this one as the mover. Your thoughts, Councillor Jones? Then we'll come back to Councillor Shoemaker.
Look, I understand and agree with Councillor Erkins to a degree, but I don't want to see a bidding war and all that sort of stuff starting in the main street over for, I don't know how many businesses would be interested or located. I know Little Italy and the bakery and Utopia and all that sort of stuff are placed pretty well for that sort of stuff. But I take on what Aaron has said. They want to know what's going on. I'd be happy to, and I think the CEO needs some sort of a guideline from us as to where we'd like to see those costings come in. You know, hotel for the first year, hotels at 500 and the other businesses at 250 or something like that, just to start the ball rolling and lock it in. At some sort of a guideline. I think the businesses up the main street, you know, they're totally different businesses. One's the hotel, obviously, 10 till midnight would be their licences, and cafes operate from 6 till 5 in the afternoon or whatever, and they can extend if they want. They can change their hours. I understand that, but the potential for a hotel to make significant impact on their income, I think, outweighs a little bit the cafes and the bakeries and that sort of stuff in the street. But yeah, so I really don't want to see the CEO have the pressure put on him to negotiate and go and have 4 different prices come in, and then we've got to come and decide. There might be 5 businesses put in a bid, and we've got to decide 300, 200, 100 and all that, and it comes down to the highest price. I'd rather just see some sort of a guide locked in. Like, I'd be happy for 500 for the hotels, 250 for the other 4 structures in the main street, and let the CEO, you know, that's a guide and all that sort of stuff. I don't know how many businesses would be actually interested in those 4 in the main street. I'm hoping that they will take them up, but yeah, some sort of a guide around like that, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. So, sorry, Kimberley. So if we were to leave 500 in item 1 and then make 250 item 2, you're comfortable with that as the mover? Councillor Shoemaker, your thoughts as the seconder?
I do understand the sentiment in the conversation. It's not that I disagree. I actually was supportive of the original motion. I know often if it is too expensive, we will definitely receive the feedback. But I did think, as a small business owner myself, I did think $10 a week is probably suitable for an initial introductory sort of point. Every year, it's my understanding council reviews its fees and charges. So if we trial this and we decide it's really not working or there does need to be enormous change, we can do that. I just know firsthand the impact you know, we have had on businesses in the CBD who have worked with us and continued trading. You know, every door's been kept open, but I do think this is a nice sort of start to activating the space. So I'm actually fully supportive of the original motion. I really do like the idea of giving the cafes the first year free. I do note that the hotel arrangements, I think they are really unique arrangements for their businesses, and I do think the $500 is reasonable. However, my only question to the CEO is there like competitive neutrality or anything that we need to be mindful here where you're setting 2 different rates or standards for different business owners based on their operations? And are we better just to go with one clean kind of response for all of them in the street?
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. Probably not so much competitive neutrality, but just procurement or tender process. The 500 is neat. If we're going to go to be negotiated, the expression of interest would nearly cover it, because you would get submissions through an expression of interest, and then you could deal with your preferred. You'd end up with 4 preferred suppliers or contractors or tenders, and then you could deal with that through a council process. At the moment, the 500 is clean as far as if council was going to change anything rather than dropping the bottom one, would you increase the top one? But it's not. You would just need to, whatever you did, you'd need to do equally and fairly across them. Now you've got 2 different categories of business, so the hotels would all be treated the same, and the coffee shops would all be treated the same. So long as they were all treated equally and equitably and fairly.
I think, thinking about this, and I have, businesses in the street, we absolutely want to see them buy furniture to be able to use these spaces. I know that will come at a cost, and I know that won't be easy for all businesses at this point in time. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to really activate our cafe culture, and from a livability perspective, I've been listening to residents, and I know they love the idea. Little Italy now, is really getting into that fancy cafe culture where you can buy your dog gets a free treat at the door while you come and sit on the street and have your coffee, which, admittedly, that is something that I've seen a lot happen on coastal areas and not in the South Burnett. So it's a little exciting that you are seeing that kind of culture happening. I think this is a good starting point. I know it's always hard to increase fees, but I am really mindful. I guess I'm listening to the feedback around, hotels definitely can operate more on that proviso. Do we increase the hotels, slightly because there are more hours of operation? I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. I'm probably sitting on the fence. I'm supportive of it as it stands, but welcome the conversation.
Okay. I think we've got to be careful to move on. I'm conscious of time here. I don't want to keep going around the table on this. Is there any councillor that hasn't had the opportunity to speak? Councillor Hedgen, my apologies. You're sitting over there. I should be looking to my right.
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, through you. Just one thing to take into consideration, or 2, and it's Councillor Perkins has alluded to, the extended liquor licences, that will be policed by the police and also the liquor licensing. So I don't think that's something council needs to worry or concern themselves about too much. And the second thing, just one concern I have with the time frame, I'm not sure how many people would want to sit out on those corners in July and August, where that might lend itself to another business to be able to utilise that space at certain times in the year. So for argument's sake, if that was available for the winter months, for argument's sake, June, July, August, there might be another business, rather than have that tied up by a hotel, for argument's sake, there might be a shop owner 3 down from it that might want to utilise that in those winter months where their trading hours are from 8 till 5 o'clock, because I really don't think many people are going to sit on a footpath in those months outside of a hotel. That's just something I think needs to be taken into consideration, which I'm sure the conversations will be had with the business owners. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So, General Project Manager, I'm not so concerned about the price, because I think this is all about activation in the main street and increasing patronage on the CBD. So I'm comfortable with the concessional pricing to support that. I guess if once we select the successful applicants, would we then have a lease agreement with them? How would that look? And would there be the capacity for them, just picking up on Councillor Henson said, to sublet or allow others to use the space when they don't have the need for it under those arrangements?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we would have a lease agreement, subject to however legal puts that together. The main thing is, I think if you get to the expressions of interest, see what they want to do with it. I think that'll be your big telltale, and then we can go from there and see what options are available. I think, to be honest, the conversations we've had from the street, I think they will be taken up if they're the conversations we've had is they want to know, they don't want to go and spend thousands and thousands of dollars and it doesn't work out for them. I think they're looking to put some money into, and that's why we put the first year free, was it like they'd rather see them buy some decent furniture and put it there, to be honest, and have a bit of a go, and then they can review themselves after 12 months. We're aware of some places that normally open during the day want to open nights as well. And the other thing that we do expect is there'll be some businesses who want to use it in the morning, and there'll be some businesses who want that space in the evening as well. So depending on what the nature of their business is, so there's a bit of opportunity there. I think also just probably that the main one that we're after too is to give the businesses some guidance on what that looks like, so that, you know, some of the conditions that they'll see also that they might have to sign up to. I think the main one there is that the fact is they've got to keep it clean, they've got to maintain it, so if it gets wrecked, that they pay for it, the same as any other premises. That gives them a bit of certainty about what they're up for. The comment made before about extra staff and that sort of stuff, that's also being discussed with one of the businesses. They have concerns that obviously for them to go into an area, they've got to employ additional staff because it's an extra 8 tables for them to wait on. I'm not saying that but they said like that is an impact. That's something that they have to look on. And staff's a little bit hard to get sometimes at the moment. So it gives them a bit of an opportunity to look at what that business model looks like for them. So that gives an opportunity to see what they have to say.
Yeah, well, I've just got the floor. So, project manager, we talked there about an inclusive access must be maintained. So, just in relation to that, we won't be having seating inside the alfresco. So, we'll have the alfresco structure. They'll have to pull their own seating in. There'll be now council supplied seating at all. That's up to them to do with their own furniture, as you've been indicating. Yeah. So then if I've got a coffee and a toasted sandwich from the cafe, and I'm walking down the street, and I want to sit in the furniture at the corner of the Club Hotel, but I'm not spending money with them, do they then have the right to move me on?
Yeah, that's right, through Mr. Mayor. So same as if you go to any other town. So if you go to the coast, you can see which ones are reserved for those patrons. So it would be the same rules applied.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that would be the case. I just want to confirm. So then the next question from that is then, have we got other seating then in the main street, in Haley and Kingaroy Street, where people can sit down if they're just general members of the public? Will the finished product have further seating, and how much seating will there be available for just for people in the main street generally?
Yeah, so through Mr. Mayor, on the there's a number of the bench seats around through Kingaroy Street. Also, you've got the bank gallery corner there, which has got seating in the grass area. It's got the 2 the timber daybed platforms that were there to be put in, and also up at along Haley Street, there's a number of the picnic table style ones. And we actually have gone to a disabled access one, so that when I say that, there is a part of the seat that is removed. There's a special one that's been made for those areas. So there'll be the seating throughout the CBD as there is now. There's probably a few more opportunities, to be honest, to grab your stuff. The other thing is too is if you are buying something from the bakery, for example, the bakery, and they say they don't take up one of those alfrescos, they're still entitled to have their tables and chairs outside their door like they do now for their patrons to sit on. So, yeah, there should be no change. It would be better, I think.
It's certainly more comfortable knowing that there's going to be adequate general publicly provided seating for other members of the community. So comfortable with that. Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question. So in front of the Commonwealth Bank, I know that there was that big shade structure, and there was a lot of people loved that area. And when we removed it, they were pretty cranky. Is there still going to be shade around that Commonwealth Bank? Because it's a very hot area. Is it going to be seeded and shaded, or what are we doing with that area?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. So that's actually probably a good one to discuss with council. So we have the larger trees going up in there. So there's a Yamundi, I think, up there, a flame tree, and then there's a quandong or something like that. So it is a larger shaded. Obviously, those trees will take a little bit more time to grow. So that area is as you see it now. So it's designed to be a semi-parkland style area. So originally we had the design there was for a large timber daybed style one with a tree in the middle to go through. obviously what we've done up there at the moment is we've been able to find 2 precast ones, which obviously saves us a lot of money, and place the tree in the middle in a grate. So it will grow over time to take up that area, but it is an open space. So one of the feedback we had on the previous one is that the previous design in that area, which was the brick area, was quite dark, and I wouldn't say unsafe, but there's probably some undesirable outcomes of that area. So it is quite an open area at the moment. So when you put shade up, you do block certain elements. The main thing there is, I think the western sun in the afternoon will be the biggest impact. So the idea of having those trees, they're both adjacent to those large timber platforms that are going there. Over time, it will throw off more shade for that area. But it, essentially, like everywhere in Kingaroy, especially in summer, you'll hug the shade where the sun is. So in the morning, as the council said before, the western side of the road is quite nice and warm. It's beautiful out there at the moment, but if you sit on the cold side, on the western side, it's probably not going to be your first choice of premises. So it does depend on what season it is in there as well. So does that answer, councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think we're at the point where we probably need to get to the vote on this one. So $500, item 1 for hotels, 250. Councillor Jones is proposing for those 4 cafe structures. Mr. CEO, yeah, Councillor Shoemaker, are you prepared to second that? Okay, so 500 and 250. You're comfortable with that? Thank you. Councillor Jones is comfortable. Anything to conclude the debate, Councillor Jones? Happy to go to the vote? Yes. Those in favour? Those in favour, Councillor Shoemaker, Duff, Jones, Henson and Otto. Those against, Councillor Erkins. That's been carried 5 votes to 1. Thank you all. I'll now move that we adjourn for morning tea. Second, Councillor Henson. Thank you. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. See everyone back here at 11 a.m. Thank you. Okay, welcome back all. Now move that we resume the meeting. Do we have a second to Councillor Henson? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.4, RRTG funding nominations at 54. Thank you, Manager Darcy, and good to have you with us. We'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Council's awareness, it's the annual process, I suppose, where we go through and review our road network and look at opportunities to assess the road network against the available funding offered through the Regional Roads and Transport Group. Council would generally be aware we're part of the Wide Bay Burnett, and we have a number of local roads of regional significance that we look to nominate for opportunities for this funding. So it is quite a technical process where we look to nominate some of our stronger applications that we believe will fit the criteria and maximising the opportunity to gain as much money because it is a sliding scale of money that is offered across the councils in the Wide Bay Burnett in trying to get that money onto the network in South Burnett. So what this report is seeking to do is to put before council 3 roads. 2 of those are council roads and 1 is state controlled. The state controlled road is Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road on the eastern entry exit out of Kingaroy heading towards the Burnett Highway. So looking at the section just beyond the Wattle Camp Road turnoff, just as you come up over that crest and that curve as you look to head east, where it goes from 2-lane back to single lane. And that is pretty much the strongest section we believe on that particular leg of the route. The other 2 are Cumbia Road, which is the southern exit entry point coming out of Cumbia heading towards Ellesmere. There's a little section about 320 metres long that's sort of left over from the last stage of works and looking to just finalise that gap essentially. So 320 metres in a fairly low speed area. So that's right on the edge of Stewart Street and the highway, the Bunya Highway end of Cumbia Road. And then the third one is Memorandum Barkers Creek Road, which once again we finished off a stage of works last year and looking to continue a lot of that work along there to support industry and the general operations of that particular area, given that connects the northern area of Wattle Camp back with both highways, whether at the Burnett or the Bunya. So looking to try and have our nominations to the regional road group, the tech committee, in the coming weeks, and looking for council's comments in relation to the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager. We have recommendation. Councillor Duff, you had your light on, but you don't want to. You don't have a
Sorry, I
motion?
just want to ask a question. but
Question.
maybe-
Okay, we'll come back to you then. So recommendation is that the committee note the nominations of the Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, Cumbia Road and Memorandum Barkers Creek Road for the 2026-27 TIDS funding as part of the Future Capital Works program. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Erkins. Here, speakers, Councillor Jones.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I support these three roads, and we could sit here and talk for hours and throw up a whole heap of other road names, but the Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road has been an issue for quite some time. We've got high traffic volumes going out there at issues, keeping in mind that if we do more work with the heavy vehicles and all that sort of stuff, and maybe suggested rerouting down through Redmonds Road and the intersection upgrade there as well, that'll work in well with all that. The police officer from Cumbia, Ray Stewart Street out there is an issue the other day when we were talking there, that particular part of the road. So it's was well endorsed there by the police, considering that we've got that up, and also Memorandum Barkers Creek Road. Well, we don't need to talk too much about that. Lockie Brown and the packager, the feedlot and all that sort of stuff. It'll just continue to help a significant business in our region, also to make safe travel for the commuters that use that Memorandum Barkers Creek Road as well. So fully endorse this to the chamber, and look forward to, if supported, take it to the RRTG and nominate those roads.
Further speakers, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just concerned about the Bye Road and why it hasn't been included, because it is, we've done some work on it, but there's 2 kilometres there that is disgraceful, and we're not, like the rest of it is all really good. And why would that road not be on this list, considering we've already had some funding on it and would just complete that? Also, the Kingaroy Bar and Down Road, I drove along it. It is a disgrace. Why is it not, like these roads? There's some main roads in our area that I think should be at least considered over and above these. Just putting that forward and asking the question, and certainly not going to be supporting this unless those other roads are considered.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Boyie Road, there has been a number of stages of Boyie Road delivered through the TIDS program over recent years, particularly in that section between Flats Road intersection up towards Wheatland School. I think that was a really good success of what the program does offer for the state-controlled network. I don't believe there would have been any other financial mechanism other than this council nominating that through this RRTG program in order to get that delivered. You're absolutely right. There is further work to be done on Boyie Road, particularly back towards that Wandai-Proston end, but then also the opposite end up towards Silverleaf. And whilst we have done some really high-level work in trying to get that further advanced, it's around trying to find those financial mechanisms in order to get those delivered. The problem is that we do have a number of state-controlled roads that are probably at a level of service that need to be somewhat equitable with the higher order council roads, and that how they dovetail into the network is very important. Silverleaf Road's a really good example of that at the northern end, where it's probably superior in the profile of the road, given it's a 2-lane road operating east-west, and then you've got a single-lane section of Boyie Road that comes into it from the southern side. So Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road is a really strong nomination in the fact that it is in the strategic plan as well for the Wide Bay Burnett, and it is also got probably at this point in time just over double the amount of traffic. Happy to have further discussions on what Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road offers, but it is one of those things that we believe through the strategic plan and being able to do a lot of the work locally to support TMR's delivery on this is a good opportunity, but also at the same time is that the state-controlled nominations also acquire 100% of the subsidy. So what that does is actually council, based on the ranking process, might we might come in third or fourth out of the 5 councils that exist in the Wide Bay Burnett. But what it will do is actually consume a larger portion of that subsidy. The council roads, council has to contribute 50% towards it. The state-controlled roads, they contribute 100% towards what that project delivers. So it consumes a larger percentage of that subsidy. So, a state-controlled road, we might get one road up through this process. The state-controlled road, the council roads, we might be a higher chance of actually getting 2 roads up, being able to deliver 2 projects in the same year. So it is a balancing act in trying to get that level of road profile in the region, and it's around trying to put good projects like this on the table for council's consideration in future years. So we are looking at something that's within a 4-year window, looking ahead. The state traditionally works in 4-year windows, such that we have a 4-year program where we've got 2 years of fixed and 2 years of rolling into the future, such that those projects have the opportunity to be worked on over time. And then obviously getting into the year of delivery is where the bulk amount of cost is then delivered. So it is certainly a challenge in trying to get everything on the network. Kingaroy and Burrendown does share a lot of similar issues once you get further west, pretty much of the Stewart Creek crossing. It's probably around understanding there's a massive amount of investment needed on that lower order network. And the second attachment that's provided in this report, you may see that the orange roads that are presented in that second attachment highlight the state-controlled LARS network, and there is a serious amount of kilometres that needs to be reviewed and assessed, and then understanding what that gap analysis looks like of what is a suitable profile of road to support each of those roads in the region, because they all do something different for us, either as asset owners or as the maintenance contract that we currently have with the state. So there is a number of challenges. Fully agree with your comments on wanting more roads in the program. Unfortunately, we just don't have more money to go into the program to support the delivery of that at the same time.
Sorry. So, through you, Mr. Mayor. So what you're saying is that the Bayou Road, we're just going to leave, like these are 4 years in advance. We're leaving the Bayou Road just staying like that for over 4 years. We're not even going to submit it in this to be considered. So I just absolutely cannot support this motion because, and I don't think that we've had a proper look at all the roads and weighed them up. We've just been given 3 roads without the council being aware of what other roads are options. So I'm not happy with the process. I'm certainly not happy that that particular road's not included.
Okay. All right, we'll go to further speakers. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to confirm, so for the 22-23 and 24-25 year, what roads did we actually put forward?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor. On the program, we have the lion's share is with the Maidenmore Bunya Mountains Road that was provided for in 2020. So that has 2 years of financial allocation. We have Corndale Road to deliver this financial year. And then in 25-26, I think we have Blackbuck Crow's Nest as well. So between those 4 years, we're covering 3 roads. Obviously, Maidenmore Bunya Mountains Road is it's a fairly expensive project given the scope and the scale of that job, the location and the topography of that is quite challenging. But the TIDS mechanism is pretty much the most powerful one we have available to do anything about it right now. So that is the, that classification of road is very important with Corndale, Maidenmore Bunya Mountains, but then also Blackbuck Crow's Nest over the coming 4 years.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. And you said in terms of Kingaroy Barker's Creek Road that it would be a strong nomination because it's part of the Wide Bay Burnett strategic plan. Are there other roads, the other roads listed here are council-owned roads, so they're not included in the strategic plan? Have I got that thinking right?
No, they are, in
They
all honesty,
are.
yeah. So there are a combination of both state and local government roads that are listed in that strategic plan.
Yeah.
I know Memorandum Barker's Creek is in that as well. So it is around trying to maximise the potential, that the fact that the council is looking to put up nominations that support a strategic outcome.
I see. And just my final question, just in terms of time frame, like it's my understanding, so we're nominating 26, 27 roads now in 22. When do you actually get some clarification as to whether those nominations have been successful or not? Is it not until in those later years, or do they start nominating those now?
We actually do the body of work within the coming 6 months. So the process is that we put up the nominations from a council. It goes to the technical committee to moderate that. So that's a council peer review process from a technical point of view, which myself or Kevin, depending on who's available, can attend those meetings. From there, it is then forwarded on to the regional road group committee that's chaired by Councillor Jones for potential endorsement or further deliberation, depending on whether they're satisfactory with making a decision. And then from there, it then goes to the state for inclusion in the Q trip, which is the investment program that the state offer for roads assets.
Yeah, thank you for that further information. Look, based on the report that's been given here, what I know, and certainly what I've learned over the last couple of years, and the roads that have been put forward, I do know these are priority roads on the list. I do certainly empathise and sympathise around the Bayou Road. I've travelled that quite a bit myself to Bundaberg and alike, and you can certainly see it does need work, but it's great to hear that we have actually been able to achieve some successful TIDS funding in the past to do some significant work on that stretch, and I know we can never take our eye off that. I guess my concern is there's just never enough money in these programs to go around. I think the supporting document that you've got here that demonstrates just how many roads in the South Burnett, that are actually state-controlled LARS roads that we're managing in comparison to some of our neighbouring regions is really interesting. And yeah, look, I read the rationale. I'm comfortable with the decision to put these roads forward. I know they're all heavily trafficked roads, and yeah, it would be great to see them be funded. And certainly if Kingaroy Barker's Creek Road is a strong nomination under the strategic plan, I don't think we cannot not nominate that. Thank you.
Further speakers?
I'm going to
No.
make an amendment.
Okay, councillor,
I'd
put your
like
amendment forward.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment that this matter be put on hold until we have all councillors are given a list of what roads are on the are included from the South Burn in the strategic plan. And also a list of other roads that could be considered, and other roads that could be considered.
Okay, well, the first thing is that's not a procedural motion, so that will need to go to debate. Just want to clarify. It's outside the scope of procedural motions as defined in our policy. So we'll need to first of all seek a seconder. Do we have a second for the amendment? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Councillor Duff, you can speak to your proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think that this is a really, really important issue. I know that the people around that take the kids to the Bayou School are absolutely concerned about that road. There's no other option for it to get funded unless we put it on this particular list. I haven't seen a list of the roads that are included in the strategic plan. I don't know how they get on that strategic plan. I don't know what other roads could be considered in this list, and I just think this is a major decision because this is big dollars, and I think that it needs to have more time and a proper list put forward, and not just here's 3 roads, we pick them. Just, I just don't think that the process is correct. I don't think the councillors are fully informed, and I'm just wanting to get the support of the chamber on this one. Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My only question in relation to Councillor Duff's motion is, in terms of time frame, how soon do we have to have our TIDS funding programs nominated, and is there actually time for a delay?
Through you, Mayor, it's due in 2 weeks. And if I may, Mayor, I believe we had a workshop on the RRTG in January this year, which presented councillors with all the roads that were eligible. We can represent that information and redistribute it if you like.
General Manager, thank you for clarifying that. So that has been provided to council, that full list.
Yeah, James informed me at the start of the year there was a workshop on it, Mayor.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for clarifying that and providing that with the accurate information for the committee. Okay. We'll start with Councillor Shoemaker then. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly I seconded the motion because I felt Councillor Duff did have a valid point, and it is always good to receive more information. I do remember the workshops that we've had. There's been so many workshops about roads. I do know from my own experience, as Councillor Duff has said, the children that travel to Wheatland School, I know for a fact that there are a number of children that travel all 3 of these roads that are nominated every single day on their way to school. I also know that they are priority roads, and I am more than comfortable in the decision to put these roads forward and won't be supporting Councillor Duff's motion on the fact that we simply do not have enough time to challenge these. We need to get the roads put into a priority list and in queue for consideration by government funding. I do agree it's big dollars and we can't afford to miss out on them. And I know, because I have seen these roads come up time and time again over the 2 years, that these are important roads to the people of the South Burnett. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, further speakers in relation to the proposed amendment? Manager, just on, just on that that third road there, the Memrambi one, Memrambi Barker's one, Wattle Camp. So will that complete? That'll complete that. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I can see that 1.53 kilometres. And is that in addition? We can see there that that's used for agricultural purposes. Is it also a reasonably heavily trafficked road? Does our data indicate that in terms of other vehicles? Do we have a school bus run through there, for example? Is that?
Yeah, certainly, Mr Mayor. That's actually part of the prioritisation tool that the district assesses a lot of these projects, is around some of those contributing factors, like school buses, the economic and agricultural interests of a project like this is quite well supported. So they are factors that are built into the assessment process that that the technical chairperson looks over. So Memrambi Barkers Creek Road, has quite a high percentage of heavy vehicles. It's about 24% heavy vehicles, which is quite high. 1 in 4 essentially is a truck of some configuration through there. We also work closely with Packedaringa in how do we get their vehicles out to the highways, because there is some profiles of road that aren't fully supported at either end at this point in time. So what we're trying to do is to link them back to one of the highways, because of their national heavy vehicle process, and B-doubles are quite tricky vehicles, and trying to get them into all the locations of where a lot of those feedlots and things like orchards and some of those more intense operations do need trucks to support them, and trying to maintain a duty of care to the other road users is very, very important.
Can you imagine? The other question I had was in relation to Kingaroy Barkers. That's not the complete. That doesn't complete this. It's over 2 kilometres. I know that is not. There's a couple of different sections there. This is on the eastern side of the Wattle Camp road turn, but if we come back on the western side, I think there's more, or certainly on that road somewhere, there's more dangerous single lane sections, isn't there? And that being the case, is there any plan for this to be stage 1 and there to be a stage 2 and or 3 to complete the entire road into double lanes?
Mr Mayor, I might just draw your attention to figure 3, and I'm hoping this might illustrate it a bit further in the first attachment. What we have in figure 3 is the light blue colour is the proposal that we're looking to nominate at this point in time. And what you'll see is that there's 2 other lines on that same diagram which indicate the single lane sections that will still remain on Kingaroy Barkers Creek. So they're back further to the east on the Burnett Highway side, but this is around wanting to address pretty much the Wattle Camp interests up there, because it is probably an area that does suffer a little bit more, both with more vehicles, but also with some of the conditions of that road shoulder up there. It's a bit sandier, and it's a bit more prone to erosion as a result.
Yes, thanks for explaining that. I can see that now. They're all on the eastern side there. So, but that's the first priority you've identified. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that certainly clarifies it. Final question. So then in terms of Baillie Road, where we know it's heavily trafficked, it's got high ag economy throughput there. We've got that odd 2Ks that's on the southern side of flats. Is there a process council can do to try and get that on the Q trip outside of the RRTG? Because this is going to tie us up for another 4 years. And if so, how can we do that? We've had a lot of advocacy on that road, community advocacy, as well as Kingaroy Bar and Dowd, as Councillor Duff's raised. Is there a plan B as to how we can approach getting the state to do something on those roads?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I think your processes are quite strong in the advocacy space in needing to support some of those other lower order state controlled roads. It is around trying to find where the funding opportunities are. So you're absolutely right. The RRTG it's a slow moving beast in being able to contribute to the outcomes that the region is seeking. But trying to get more money, we need to look at other avenues of where there might be other funding applications from a state or federal point of view, understanding what a lot of the drivers are for those particular roads, by obviously having some strong agricultural links in contributing to gross domestic product, which is really, really good. But yeah, also how do we find other avenues of getting some of the other roads that we have, like Memorandum Gordonbrook or Proston Boondooma, how do we actually get those roads into the spotlight for funding is quite difficult. There are limited avenues from what I see at this point in time, and how we get the state's attention in wanting to invest on that network. So at this point in time, we're quite confined in what we can actually achieve, but what we want to do is to continue to work with the state on what their goals are as well with their own network, because we need to make sure that the region's interests align with the asset owner's interests as well at the same time.
Thank you very much, Manager. Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to confirm that these roads are the roads that you feel are most in need and have the best chance of success in the application.
That is correct. If I miss something. That is around identifying, it is a limited pocket of money at the end of the day. Like this is, all 3 are not guaranteed to get any funding. There's an amount of money. There could be a chance that we only have success with getting 1 out of these 3 projects up. It'll come back through the technical assessment process on which one is the strongest one of the 3 projects to get funding towards it. So what we want to do is pretty much try to maximise and elevate our council position in the region to give ourselves accessibility to as much money to deliver as much on the network as possible.
So
So
that's
we
my
are
question.
competing with other councils in
And
that regard.
you're satisfied that you've chosen the roads that are most in need and best meet the criteria?
It is a technical recommendation to council, acknowledging that there are gaps across the network and putting this forward to council for discussion, but then also if we're comfortable looking at forwarding this through to the technical committee as council's nomination for further assessment.
Yeah, I needed a yes.
Yeah, but well explained nonetheless. Thanks, Manager. You always do a good job of that. Manager, in terms of then, sorry, if I could just quick number, you said 2 weeks. 2 weeks, we've only got 2 weeks to the deadline to have it to the technical committee, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mr Mayor. We're looking to, the deadline for the assessment by all councils is the 17th of October, and looking to try and have these submissions ready for that. So we do need to do some further tidy up work in getting the paperwork together, but it's really around understanding council's interest in moving these nominations forward.
So if we were to pass this resolution, you're not going to be able to then meet that deadline. I wouldn't have thought. It's only 2 weeks. 8 working days. Yeah, okay. Just want to clarify that. Yeah, okay. If there's further speak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, and obviously it'd be fair to say work's been conducted on this, and looking at the report on 54 and 55.
Welcome to Poly Real Connect service.
And we welcome you too. And no doubt work's been going on this since early in the year, January, when that presentation was done with eligible roads. And I'd like to make a comment on some roads, and maybe that Burrendown Road would be a great road for advocacy from this council with the project that's going to go on out there on the western side. And I think everyone in this chamber knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that would be a road that I would be very confident that we could do something with on that Burrendown Road with that project and the companies involved in that in future. And I think that would happen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Jones, probably long before 27, if we approach that in the right manner. And I think we could source some serious funding for not just that road, but probably many others as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff, to conclude, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well then, if that was the case, then the Cumbia Road that's on this list would be one you could advocate for, and we could change that to the Bayou Road. So I'm just really, really disappointed, because I believe that the Bayou Road has already ticked the box. It got up through this process before, so it's obviously one that has been able to get a Guernsey due to the fact of the traffic volumes and where it sits. It's just not completed. So it defies logic to me as to why that road has not been put forward in this list. So just very, very disappointed if we get these 3 roads put forward and not the Bayou Road. And so, but I think due to the timelines, I probably need to just withdraw that amendment, because it's not going to work in any case. Because of the timelines, just withdraw the amendment. But I just
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I think we'll go to the vote. It's probably going to be lost anyway, if I can say that without getting myself into trouble. But let's go to the vote. Hey, those in favour? Councillor Duff. Those against? Okay, it's been defeated 5 votes to 1. Councillor Duff voting in favour, all other councillors against. So the amendment's been defeated. We'll come back to the original motion, which stays on the floor, moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Erkins, in relation to these 3 projects being nominated. So I'll open the floor up again, further discussion quickly, anything further from any councillors, and then we'll go to Councillor Jones to wrap up before we go to the vote. Anything further? One opportunity each. Councillor Duff.
I'm just going to have one more go at trying to get Bayou Road on. I think if the Cumbia Road, why couldn't it be included in, as Councillor Henson has said, in the advocacy for with the wind farm, and we could put the Bayou Road in, because I'm quite sure all the councillors would agree that that section of road is a disgrace, and if we leave it for another 4 years, I just don't know where the community is going to land with trying to to, there's just no way we can get funding because we can't even get money for any of these state control roads, let alone that one. So just hopefully can get support to have that change to the Bayou Road.
Oops, further speakers? Councillor Henson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Cumbia Road, I believe, is 320 odd metres. That road is accessed through school. Will have nothing to do, transport nothing to do with Burrendown Road because that will be a major access road. What's going on out there? There'll be no traffic accessing that Cumbia Road in relation to that project out there.
Thanks for clarifying, Councillor. Okay, any further speakers? We'll go to Councillor Jones. Anything to wrap up, Councillor Jones? You're comfortable? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, Councillors Shoemaker, Erkins, Jones, Henson and Otto. Those against, Councillor Duff. Thank you, Councillor Duff. That's been carried 5 votes to 1. And I'll just note for Council there, we do have a resolution on the books going back some time that we would advocate for the roads that Councillor Duff referred to, Bayou Road and Kingaroy Burrendown. I think from memory, I'm sure we will continue to advocate to the state government in relation to Bayou Road and Kingaroy Burrendown Road with whatever funding opportunities might come our way, Mr CEO, into the future.
Yep, no, and support that, Mayor. But also the other point, which is kind of relevant, I think it's important when we do the advocacy, we continue. The TMR took 700,000 out of the TIDS budget for each year going forward this last year. And so that budget should be reinstated, and that would help alleviate the many priorities that we have.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr CEO. And clearly that'll be a matter for the Wide Bay regional councils to come together and advocate for, along with others in the state, around that TIDS allocation. But certainly, Councillor Duff, thank you for the debate, but this is certainly not going to go away. We'll continue to fight for Bayou and Kingaroy Burrendown with some into the future. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then to the School Transport Infrastructure Program, which is item 7.5 at page 59. Thank you, Manager Darcy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The School Transport Infrastructure Program is a program that this council's been quite successful in advocating and delivering for over the last couple of years. It's been one that we've worked closely with the Department of Transport Main Roads in delivering a number of successful projects, and this council was fortunate in that being recognised at a national level with an award in recent times. But with the success of the program obviously comes greater interest as well, and with this round of what I'll call STIP as an acronym, is that this program is now being a bit more highlighted across our colleagues at other local governments in Queensland, and as such the competition is getting elevated for accessing that available funding. So I think there's $20 million available over 4 years, and we have a number of projects that fit the criteria for STIP funding, and we've looked to bring them forward to Council for further discussion. This program is due for closure at the end of the month, so I think it's the 28th of October. But looking to nominate a number of projects here that have been discussed at either a TAC meeting or with councillors in the past, or it sits in our 10-year capital works program in the transport asset class. So as before you in the order that they're presented, Mergen School crossing upgrades, and there are some pictures as well on page 62, to help in assisting where these exist. The Mergen School crossing upgrades is one that we've been working closely with the Department of Transport Main Roads, particularly their road safety and school crossing safety supervisors, who provide a level of input into those discussions from a safety point of view. So this is one that's very well supported by the state in that regard, and see this as an opportunity in working with them in delivering the works on the ground to support their school crossing supervisors. The second one is the St Mary's Catholic College footpath, and it was one where we sought to deliver that under stage 1, and due to the constraints of what we've observed, particularly in the last 12 to 18 months, around the cost of construction. It was one that we felt we could hold over until a future funding opportunity like this presented itself, but also at the same time look to connect that into the existing footpath network that's down towards Albert Street as well. And I know that there was some previous council or comments around trying to achieve this, particularly in the last 12 months. So that's actually a strong application as well. The Mergen State High School parking upgrades, I know that there has been some discussion in this chamber around particularly that northern end of Gore Street, up north of Dutton Street East, particularly with the new hub going in, and the impact of those buildings on the street network. So all of a sudden we've got cars being parked on road shoulders that are pretty much table drains at this point in time, and wanting to improve the capacity of that street, increasing the safety and the users of that road by putting in a parking lane and improving the drainage through there at the same time. So that third item is in relation to that. The fourth one is the Mergen State High School footpath, which is on the southern side of Dutton Street East, on the western side of the pool entrance. This is around the asset reaching its end of useful life, and I think the photo probably demonstrates that to a fair degree. So that is between the pool and Krebs Street intersection, getting that first section of footpath done. A lot of that is around the fact that, and you can see in that photo about how well occupied those parking bays are due to the high schoolers and the particularly the 11s and 12s getting interested in getting their licences, which need those bays to support them. Item number 5 is the Markle Street bus interchange, which we discussed last month off the back of our road safety audit, and looking at this as a funding opportunity to help support the deliveries of those reports and improving the operations and safety of buses that use that area, but also the students and how they access those buses is paramount. And so we see there being an opportunity to improve some of those little islands that feed down to where those bus bays are, and improving a lot of the configuration of that general area, even though it is unbelievably hectic at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is probably the best possible outcome we could have in delivering the outcomes of what that looks like. And then item number 6 is also a carryover from the first round, similar to my comments made before. This is around looking at having something in place to go and deliver a lot of those outstanding works on Avoca Street and the William Toomey intersection, to continue a lot of the investigations, the dialogue and engagement with the high school down there, with the previous principal, but also with the current principal now as well, and looking to try and deliver on a lot of those known issues that contribute to school safety, and a lot of the infrastructure that council possesses in making sure that our assets are fit for purpose for the community. Happy to take any further questions, councillors.
Thank you, Manager. Okay, Councillor Duff, did you want to address the motion, or did you have questions?
I wanted to actually move an amendment to the officer's recommendation.
Okay, so you can move that as a motion. Thank you.
Motion. I just wanted to add to the officer's recommendation, and the above projects also be considered for LRCI funding.
So that will form our motion then. Committee, do we have a seconder for that motion? A seconder? Yes, Councillor Henson, thank you. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I spoke to General Manager Darcy before about the likelihood of the 6 projects getting up, and he said that unlikely. The one that's least likely to get up would be the Mergen State High School parking upgrade, because it's the dearest, most expensive project. It's $400,000. So I just don't want to miss out on the opportunity of us considering it in the LRCI funding, and then miss out on it getting into this funding as well, because I think it's a very, very important project and needs to get done sooner rather than later. So that's why I've said, well, any of these that don't get into the this STIP funding to be considered for LRCI. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I understand the STIP and all this sort of stuff. We put the projects through and none of them may get up, but I just find it, to put it into the LRCI funding when we had a lot of conversation around a significant list that was so important to the community that we had to spend the money, and now we're just continually adding projects to it. So anyway, more than happy to put it into the LRCI funding, and the list keeps growing and the budget is still there and remains the same. So these things may miss out in the LRCI rounds too when we have the conversation and do the workshop.
Okay, further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I think safety around schools is a priority, and it's wonderful to see our council has been so successful in advocating for these funds in the past and actually made some really meaningful changes across different schools across our region. So thank you, Manager Darcy and your team for the work that you do in this regard. I think I've had a look at all projects here. I know they've been discussed over the 2 years of this council term and that they're all equally as important as each other. Certainly I can see, Mergen State High School, there's been so much change there, and in the times I've visited, I can understand the challenges with parking and certainly agree that something does need to be done. It's disappointing that the state, when they fund a project like that, they don't consider the parking, and that the ratepayers of our region are sort of expected to cover those costs. I do hope that we are successful in getting some funding to support that project, if not through this, but through other means into the future. I certainly know, as the representative for St Mary's Catholic College, there is that missing section of footpath. It would be wonderful to see that completed, in the Markwell Street bus interchange. From personal experience, I know that is just so hectic, and there are hundreds of cars that go through that area at 9 and 3 every single day. So anything that we can do to try to improve the traffic flows, I think, has got to have better outcomes for the residents in that area especially. I imagine they get quite frustrated by that, particularly as the school has continued to grow. Look, I think all projects should be assessed on their merit. I'm more than happy for these to be considered in the LRCI conversations. I am, though, very mindful that around setting the community expectations, and the reality is that the dollars just don't stretch far enough to do everything that we would like to do. But as always, welcome open conversation and robust debate around that. Do hope that we are successful with these, and thank you for bringing the list forward, and cross my fingers that we are successful in getting a project or some projects up and running.
Further speakers? No, we'll go back to Councillor Duff. Right of reply?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just commend the motion. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have said closing comments. I don't think there anyone already spoke against it significantly. Okay, we're happy to go to the vote. Those in favour? That's been carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks very much, Manager Darcy, for bringing those projects forward. 7.6 Macaulay Weir Road access at 65. Welcome to Manager Kevin Searle. Welcome, Kevin. We'll let Kev get settled in, and then we'll hand over to you, Manager, to give us your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this Macaulay Weir...
Sorry, Major, sorry. My sincere apologies. Councillor Erkins, did you...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like for this report to lay on the table to allow us to have some community engagement before any discussion is held on it.
Okay, sorry, my sincere apologies, Manager. I know you've been waiting patiently. We have a procedural motion to lay the matter on the table. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Okay, we go straight to the vote. That is a procedural motion. Those in favour, this is a tough one, is it? Those in favour? Okay, I think we're going to, yes. Okay, that's, are we? Yep, okay. All right, we've got everybody. So it's been carried unanimously. So we'll take that procedural motion as passed. The matter will now lay on the table. I think, Mr. CEO, are we able to have a discussion about where we go to from here with this in terms of time frame?
Oh, the debate on it's over, Mayor. I was, well, the only question I was going to have is it'll sit on the table until it's brought back. Were we looking at bringing it back next month?
We just have some clarity around this for the committee.
Maybe, can we make it the month after, because, you know, it's few of
Yep.
us are going to be away.
Yep. So if we we'll just with the leave a meeting that lay on the table until the December standing committee, if that's.
Yeah, I'm just got, does anyone object to that? Okay, all right. So that's, the matter will lay on the table. The intention is that we'll have the report come back in December. Okay, thank you. Clarified. Let's move on. Thank you, Mr. CEO. 8.1 is the LD Local Disaster Management Portfolio Report at page 70. We haven't got Councillor Potter here today, but I guess we'll take that as presented, where the recommendation is that the report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, thank you. Second, Councillor Duff. Any speakers? Councillor Henson, thank you.
Yeah, just in relation, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, on page 71, and there's been some great media releases, thanks to our media personnel and Joanne, and on page 71 where it states, if it's flooded, forget it. I just want to bring to Council Chambers' attention that last week when I made mention and I was running late because of a vehicle that was stranded in a particular creek, and again, I'll force the point, if it's flooded, forget it, but that particular person, if not been fined, is going to be fined. So, you know, there's rules and regulations in place that if it's flooded, forget it. If they break the rules and get caught, or if they go around road signs where roads are closed or tamper with those road signs, they will be fined. So our police, QPS, and I congratulate again the council staff that were involved that morning and the police officers that were involved. And as it states on page 71, you know, if it's flooded, forget it. I'll keep banging on about it because we've got a rain event coming again. Yeah, they will be fined. They will be tracked down and they will be fined. That particular person was from New South Wales and in a place of employment in the South Burnett at present. Might have been a little naive as to the road conditions and the creek conditions, but again, should not have went into that water.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Very, very important message. And thank Mr. CEO, you and your media team for getting that excellent media release out last week around that. It's important messaging. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report. My only question is in terms of the predicted flooding that's happening, and we certainly know the impacts, as Councillor Henson experienced last week. It was quite harrowing to see those photos of what you come across on the road, Councillor Henson. Thank heavens nobody was washed away in that. I am just wondering, in terms of flash flooding and that risk, it's obviously much heightened in regards to what's predicted for the months ahead. Is there any state or federal funding available for our council to help us in upgrading the signage on those roads that we know are prone to flash flooding? Is a question, and I'm happy for you to take it on notice.
Yeah, just talking to Mr. CEO, can we take that on notice, Councillor? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just been significant commentary in local media and around council's need to upgrade that signage, and I don't disagree. It'd be wonderful to upgrade the signage on those crossings. I can see it as a priority, particularly in light of some of the incidents that have happened over these past 12 months. However, you know, it's a challenge for us to continue adding these items to our budget. So I'm very curious as to whether the state or the feds have recognised the need for this signage and have any funding that might be able to help us get some of those outcomes achieved.
Okay, right. Yes, Councillor Henson. Sorry.
And I'm happy to direct this through you, Mr. Mayor, to Manager Lowe. Has there been any communication, as Councillor Duff and I have experienced and mentioned to you several times, with those warning signs on the Boyne River and the lights? There's been numerous communications, certainly between Councillor Duff and myself, with with people concerned that they flash, and I've made mention of this before, and Councillor Duff has seen it and made mention as well, but they obviously have an issue. Has there been any communication or rectified that problem with those lights on that particular crossing?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, I can confirm that we have had some discussions with Main Road, so they're the ones installing. There is some sort of technical issue there. They have been trying to address them, and I've also asked for information on the trigger levels, whether it's a signification of that the approaches are over or the bridge is over. You know, what is the trigger level for those lights to become flashing? But given that they're a relatively new project, they're actually in the installation phase. So obviously they've got some sort of technical issue with the lights flashing.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with that being said, and certainly understand that they've got some issues there, it's been ongoing now for the last probably 2 weather events where one side flashes, and I think if council and certainly Joe and our media team can do a release in some stage when we find out, and let the public know just exactly how they work, because it did create a lot of confusion that one week the lights on the western side were flashing and not the ones on the eastern side, and then the next week the lights on the eastern side were flashing. So it created a lot of confusion with travellers and locals in the area, and being out there near Geelong, so certainly a very busy road. So perhaps when we get some more clarification on that, we can do a media release and explain to the public just exactly how they do work.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yeah, take that on board. Also, I've asked for a contact number for the technical, so that we can people and ourselves can report directly to them instead of coming through council. Yep.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Further speakers? Any other councillors? Questions or comments on the report? No? Happy to go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I'd now like to welcome Councillor Jones to present his water and wastewater portfolio report at page 72. Welcome, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is my first opportunity to make an official portfolio report on the water and wastewater. So I will present it as read. It's quite a substantial report. A couple of the highlights there that you see through our dams, long time since we've seen our dams all over 100% or 100% or more. On page 77, you can see there was a question on notice, number 5 later in the agenda, but this addresses that. Our total year-to-date requests received for water or wastewater requests is 61. Last year was 75. Year-to-date received water supply requests, we have 283, down from 364 from last year. And these requests, I believe, are significantly reducing because of the sewer relining and the water main upgrades. And I'll ask Councillor Manager Lowe to extend on that in a minute. But so you can see that those projects that we've done in the last couple of years are starting to show their benefits right now in our network. So that's fantastic to see. And it continues through. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, with a few highlights, but that's one of the best ones to report is the requests are reducing because of the works that we've done in the past. So I'd like to present the water and wastewater portfolio report for the month of council to be received. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Firstly, just wanted to point out at the bottom of page 6, wonderful to read, somebody has actually written into council to say, it was my pleasure to be visited by a young lady in your employ by the name of Regan this afternoon with regard to a question about a water leak. She was in every way professional, courteous, well-spoken and knowledgeable. I have to say what a valuable asset she is to your organisation. I think it's just always so important to call out good news when somebody's taken their time to write it and share it. That's just wonderful to read, and I absolutely agree. Too often our staff are criticised for the things that are often out of their hands, and too often they're doing a wonderful job in our community and not recognised for it. It was wonderful to see someone has done that. I just had a couple of questions in relation to the wastewater requests and the water supply requests. I think I've got them covered. I just wanted to understand what would constitute a wastewater overflow or a wastewater other? Because it seems we've put about, have I read that right, that there's 43 other requests for wastewater there? And same with the water supply requests, 364, that's extensive. That's a lot of, when you think about the numbers of days in a year, that's a lot of requests. Just in terms of the same deal, water other, there was 85 requests, and the water service or meter requests for 132. You know, is that, I didn't understand whether that was leaking or they were broken or what we might do. So just some questions around understanding that information further.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I'll try to explain as best I can. So generally, we've got fairly strict reporting guidelines for the regulators. So they categorise into blockages, odours, overflows. Other is we register every customer request, whether it is actually a council issue or other. So a lot of those are customers ring up, they want us to do X, Y, and Z, and it's actually past the property line, so therefore it fits in the category of other. So we still got to react to it. We still got to attend the premises, which is time consuming, but it's the way it is. And so we record all those data because that's what we're required to under the regulations. And the same applies for the water as well. And regarding the water service meter, so that's your water service line. It could be a leak on that, or the water meter itself faulty, or there's leaking pathcock, or any of those sort of minor issues.
And just the wastewater overflow?
Okay, so wastewater overflow. So that's if you have a sewer manhole that blocks for any particular reason. So you've actually, if it's our main line, we've got to report that through. If it's a domestic line, so domestic use their service line until it gets up to our jump up, we still record them as well as overflows.
Thanks very much, General Manager. Okay, further speakers? Happy to go to the vote? Yep. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.2, Proston Rural Non-Potable Water Supply Scheme at 79. We'll stay with you, Acting General Manager. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Basically, this report was on the back of the pump breakdown. There was just requests for more information and about what we could possibly do. So really the report is just summarising what I'd informed council of via email priors. So it's really to note the report, and probably more importantly, to get council's feedback on the attached draft for the non-potable water fact sheet. So the proposal is that we would include we'll put it on our website with possible inclusion in with the rates notices for the schemes of Proston, Rural, Cumbia and Wooroolong as being the non-potable schemes, and with the view that possibly when there is a property transfer that fact sheet is included in council's data, so that because the Chinese whispers syndrome is that gets lost in the translation, so then people are actually drinking water. Even though it's got on their rating notice that it's non-potable, a lot of people don't understand what is non-potable. So the idea of this fact sheet is to, one, give information to the public, as well as just give people broad understanding of what they can and cannot use non-potable water for.
Thanks very much, Acting General Manager. Certainly, if anyone's got any feedback on that fact sheet, that'd be appreciated, I'd imagine. But before we do, recommendation is that the responses to the question, up one step. The committee recommended council that the report be noted and the attached draft non-potable water fact sheet be included on council's website, and possible inclusion with rates notice for the schemes of Proston, Rural, Cumbia and Wooroolong. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the staff for acting so quickly with the getting the Proston Rural water back on line, which was almost, it's only was by the next day, they had the pump from Highswell just did an amazing job to get that back on track. But the feedback, we've got fair bit of negativity on Facebook, and a lot of that was around the fact that people were using that water for the wrong reasons. And so that's good to get that fact sheet out sooner rather than later, and really pleased that General Manager Lowe has acted so quickly and promptly with it. I just wondered with the non-potable water, whether we should actually say on there, I know it was only for the rules scheme, but whether we should say that there's the requirement to have that 3 days supply. I don't think it's included on that. On the fact sheet?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I think we can add that in. That's not an issue.
Yeah, because I think that was there's just that information is not out there, and now we're bringing it to their attention because I knew that you could tell by the posts on Facebook, and I didn't want to get involved with it because I thought, where's this going to land? But that certainly there was a lot of them didn't have 3 days supply, and they didn't know that they had to have that. So that would be an important one to put on this fact sheet. But really, really pleased with the response and from the staff, and yeah, just wanting to let everyone know from the Boston Rural Water Scheme that they do have to have that 3 days supply, and that they can only use it for certain things, but certainly not drinking and certainly not showering. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Acting
Yeah,
GM.
just for that, Mayor. Yeah, as I say, quite happy to take feedback on that on the fact sheet. I'm not sure Manager Jarvis is not here. There'd be a time frame that we'd have to have this to be printed to be included in the next rating period, which would be I think they read the meters around December, so I reckon when's rating, February? Yeah. Yep. So if I can just have some feedback before that, much appreciated.
Thanks very much, Acting GM. Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. I would think that not waiting for the rate notices, send it out in the rate notices, but maybe some posters and put up around those towns, because I know the poor man whose mother didn't have their non-potable water to be able to shower in, obviously doesn't know that she's not supposed to be showering in the water. So maybe we can put some posters up in the meantime. And I don't know whether it should be in a little more strong words at the top to tell them that, like you have this water, but, it's not for showering. Like to maybe make it just a little bit stronger. Because, they were pretty, like the feedback that came in on Facebook was pretty damning on council, especially from the gentleman whose mother had to wasn't able to shower, and she'd obviously been using the water for the wrong, the wrong things, and could have been made sick. So, we don't want to see anybody get ill because they're using it for the wrong things. So maybe a little stronger wording and some posters, I think, would be very good, and maybe put it onto social media because they all read that.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah.
Could I just on the poster part, appreciate it. We were proposing to put it in on our media releases. The poster part, given that predominantly the first one we were talking about is Proston Rural, there aren't too many. Sort of like, it's not like a residential setting, so yeah, we could certainly put it around at the pubs, or any of the public notice boards in town. But as far as the general public in the thing, it's a rural area. Rural scheme.
Thanks, Acting GM. We'll leave that with you. I'm sure you'll be able to cover that adequately. Yeah, thank you. Further speakers? No? Okay, we're happy to go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you very much to Acting General Manager and his team for addressing that so promptly and providing that information. Yeah. We're up to questions on notice at 10.1. They're on page 83, Committee, and we have a number of questions on notice to which Our officers have provided a response, and the recommendation is that responses to the questions raised be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded. Councillor Henson, thank you. Feel free to ask further questions. Councillors, any clarification required? Councillor Duff?
Just on the QRA one, I've just got a further additional question, probably on notice. We were led to believe that we could apply for betterment funding and do the betterment works at any time, but the QRA, when we had that update, it was indicated that you had to apply for it at the same time. You can't go back to do the work. I just wanted some clarification around that, because I'm pretty sure that we were told that we could come back later and do that betterment work or do the projects at a later date, not at the same time.
Thank you, Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor. With betterment work, there is an application process through QRA. It's generally advantageous to do the REAPER work, the rehabilitation work, in conjunction with betterment, because we're already at site. For example, if we're doing a floodway reconstruction, but there is an opportunity to do betterment separate to the REAPER work, and so what you'll find is that with our betterment list, we've currently got about 50 different sites that we are currently assessing for betterment, and we've got the first submission is going in probably in the next couple of weeks with about 7 different projects with betterment.
Thank you, Manager. We'll stay with you, Councillor Duff. Anything further on that?
Just confused, because I did ask that question. I asked it twice at that workshop, and they said definitely no. So, but you can't. Did you have to put them in at the same time as you do the REAP application? So,
yeah, happy to reconfirm that. We do have a flood meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So between now and then, I'm more than happy to just reconfirm that.
Thanks very much, Manager. It might be something we need to clarify, is that because when we had that that presentation to a previous meeting, that's the impression I got, that fellow was saying that you had to submit your betterment with your REAPER, and you had to complete the works as part of your REAPER. If there's going to be betterment, that they would be approved side by side. So, yeah, that'd be really good if you can get a clarity for that. And even if you've got to take it on notice and bring it back to the next standing committee meeting, would be fine. Might take some time to get that clarified. Yeah, if you're happy, we take that on notice, Councillor Duff?
yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
give our office time to get a proper response from the QRA. Yeah, thanks very much, Manager. Okay, any further speakers on that, on those questions? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We're now to section 11 on the agenda. 11.1, we have a recommendation that Council considers the confidential report listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 11.1, Tim Dwyer Road Quarry Operations. It's considered to be confidential under section 254J-I. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Jones. Any speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, that's been carried unanimously, the motion as presented on screen. We'll now go into closed session. We're back online. Welcome everybody back to Open Council. Dealing with item 11.1, where the recommendation is that Council note this report as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, second, and Councillor Jones. Any speakers to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. That now concludes today's business for the committee meeting, and we'll call the meeting closed at 12:25 p.m. Thanks everybody for your participation today, and have a wonderful rest of day. Thank you.